10,
9,
8, 7,
6,
5,
4,
3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone. Welcome back to the day 3 of IWD Summit 2020 celebration. I'm Swati from Women Techmakers Hyderabad, and IWD Summit has always been an inspiration with lots of learnings and key takeaways for all the community members. I'm sure you must have experienced the same last week with leadership, cloud, and machine learning tracks. Today, I'm super excited to kick off another track of the summit, that is design and entrepreneurship. We have many experts today, and I'm sure you will leave the day with lots of inspirations and learnings. You can view the schedules, tracks, and talks on our website, goo.gle Google/WTM India IWD20. Please keep your questions flowing in on chats, and we will answer your questions in Ask Me Anything session at 4:30 p.m. today. And do show us some love on Twitter using hashtag #TogetherWeRise, #IWD India 2020, #WTM India, #WTM 2020. Introducing the first speaker of the day, Karthi. Karthi has an experience of more than 65,000 hours with design, masterclasses, and products. She is the Chief Product Officer at Experian, an ecosystem for problem solvers. Today, she is here with us to help us learn more about visual engineering. Over to you, Karthi.
Can you see me? Can you hear me? All good? Hi, everyone. I don't know how many of you are out there. A very warm afternoon to all of you. Well, this is Hyderabad, so it's a hot afternoon. So yeah, let's talk about visual engineering. And thank you, Swati, for the kind words. And if I don't have engineering in the topic, people like Laksha will not allow me to talk to you. So I thought I should come up with a cool title, and hence visual engineering for you. And here is a cognitive science perspective. So I just wanted to use this 30 minutes and talk about both design and entrepreneurship to you guys. Well, we'll start with what we have in front of us, which is nothing but just words. So there are two words here, and that is visual and engineering. As all of us, including me, are engineers, we will start with what we are super comfortable with, which is engineering. So what do we know about engineering? If we ask, what is engineering? It's all about problem solving. So that's pretty much how we engineers are, or we live by this, right? And if I ask you one question, what is that one tool that you use to solve problems every day? Anything that can, anything at all? What tools do we use to solve problems every day? I don't know if you're commenting here. Yes. Yeah, yes, and it is our brain. Of course, pen, paper, tools, frameworks, all of that is there. But the main tool that we use for solving problems is actually our brain. And when you talk about brain, you use your brain sometimes, and you use others' brain, right? And that's pretty much what we do. And when we are kind of using our brain and others' brain, we call it as collaboration. And sometimes, if you are like me, then sometimes you talk to yourself, and that I call it a solo collaboration, right? And either ways, you're using this tool to really solve problems. So when you look at it from an engineering perspective, you have the system like this: input, process, output. And our human body is also a big system for that matter. You get your input through your sense organs, pretty much your all the five senses. It takes it to the brain for perceiving things, and finally you have the gift of a thought, and that thought is what you are using to transform anything that is in front of you. You're using to solve problems, you're making meaning. Everything happens as a result of a thought. So from engineering point of view, we are very heavy on processing per se, and that is pretty much what the engineering side of the word talked about. Now let's talk about the other word, visual, right? And where does this visual sit in this entire system? It sits here, a teeny wee bit. It is just one sense organ which is sending signals to our brain. And what kind of signals does it send? It sends two things: one in terms of words, the other in terms of pictures. Words, ABC, 1, 2, 3, pictures, millions of them. And you would have heard this quote many, many times, right? A picture speaks 1,000 words. Really? Can we check it? Yeah. So I'm not sure if I will be able to see your answers, but let's go and have a pop quiz. Solve this for me, and you have about 5 seconds to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you don't have answers, don't worry. Try this. You again have 5 seconds to do this. Right? 1, I'm sure you have an answer by now. I didn't even go to 5, right? Yes, the answer is 5-star. Did you get an answer to the code? You don't believe me still, right? So let's go ahead and check one more thing. Again, you have 5 seconds to solve this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not sure if you have an answer. Try this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. Yes, the answer is pentagon. Yeah. And by now, you know the answer. What does your brain prefer, visual or words, right? How are we doing so far? Is it all making sense? Is visual and engineering, the words are clear? Yes, brilliant. Okay, from a scientific perspective, we sit and figure out all these things through research studies. And this was one of the studies that was done at MIT Media Labs. And we figured out that to read a word, our brain takes about 200 milliseconds. And to kind of process the picture, it takes about 13 milliseconds. If you do the math, it's about 15x. Right? And I have seen studies where we were able to go from 15x to 60x. God has been unfair. He has given too much importance to visual processing. And you might be asking, then why do we have so many words, Karthi? Why is everything a printed word? Yes, I also had the same question, and I was asking this question again and again, and I found the answer recently. Looks like Industrial Revolution had some answers there, where our printing press could produce 26 letters and probably 10 numbers easily, and not millions of pictures. So we kind of put everything into books because it could be printed, scaled, repeated as quickly as possible. Do you know that? It's very funny when I found this out, that our brain stores words as images, words as visuals. It remembers it's a shape. Yeah, you don't have to trust anything that I say. You check it for yourself. I bet you will be able to read this without any mistakes. Any mistakes, despite the misspellings. Are you able to do that? Yes? Yes? Brilliant. And are you feeling like this? How did that happen, right? That's exactly how your brain functions. And that is the reason why we should be using visual engineering also to solve problems. So let me give you a 101 of visual engineering, right? So these are all, if you kind of look at it, if you put any picture, will it be able to understand? There are some underlying principles using which you will be able to engineer these visuals. And that is pretty much what I wanted to share with you. So these are the 6 principles you will be able to use to kind of pull out any visuals, anything that you want to kind of articulate and put as an idea. You'll be able to say, this is dark, this is light, this is small, this is big, right? And you're comparing and contrasting before, after. And the other one is a sequence. You follow 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And I am in step number 2 out of 4. And these are all very easy things for us to understand. The other one is a recipe, a formula. This plus this will give you that. And that is a formula way of explaining. A hierarchy where you will talk about, okay, here is how you start and this is how you flow. And that's pretty much how hierarchy works. In terms of wholes and parts, oh, here is a big picture and here is a small picture. You are here, kind of a thing. And commonality in terms of, okay, between this and that, here is an intersection. And these are the 6 principles. I bet 90% of all your visual communication can be utilized just using these. The other person will figure it out. 90% is a good number. So instead of really telling you what to do with these things and taking you through the rabbit hole of theory and Gestalt psychology, what I wanted you to kind of go through today is shift gears and go ahead and see how we can apply and talk about these things. So let me take the extreme end, where using visual engineering, let me show some complex ideas using some simple visuals, things that will take you a long time to kind of understand. You will be able to figure it out right now. So how are we doing so far? Good? Yes, brilliant. Okay, so here are some 15 ideas that I want to share with you today. Super complex, abstract stuff. There's an entire economy living on this, but I wanted to share it with you so that when you walk out of this presentation, you will be able to look at your life with a new pair of eyes. And are we ready? All right. Okay, let's go ahead and look at life in a very broad 30,000 view perspective. If you see life, there are about 5 parts. I call this as elements of well-being. If these 5 things are taken care, you are having a great life. One is you, your health, your well-being. The second part is your relationship, your inner circle. The third part is your career, finance, and community. Depending upon where you are in your life stage, you can change a few things here and there. If at all you're pursuing a relationship, it will come second. If at all you're pursuing your career, that will come second. But one thing doesn't change. That's the bullseye, which, yeah, it just doesn't change. Now that we have seen the elements of well-being, let's go ahead and see the timeline of our life, right? Between every B and D, there is a C. Yeah. So how do I, alphabetically it works. But what does it mean? Between birth and death, there is something called as choice. The birth and the death is completely uncontrollable. I mean, we cannot control anything. We can influence to live longer, but that's about it. The choice is something that we control every single time. And if you are thinking about entrepreneurship, these things are super important, because only when you are clear, you will be able to create something awesome in this world. So when we are looking at a choice, your life is nothing but a sum of choices. You are kind of, summating various choices, because every single moment you take a choice. And that's pretty much what your life, whether it is a big one or a small one, is based on the choices that you took in your life. Okay, the first choice that you should take is about your health. The simple way, I mean, this is my 5 years of understanding health and fitness and weight loss and everything. There is only one thing that you have to ask, is one question: where does this fit into the farm to fork meter before it goes inside me? If it is less than 2, have it. If it is an apple, have it, because the farm to fork is 0. If it is an apple, don't have it, because farm to fork will be 7 or 8. And that's as simple as that. If you just follow this one question, one choice making question, then you are taken care, right? And now that you're healthy, let's go ahead and ask, okay, what am I going to do with the choice that I have made? Okay, go in and see to that you are completely tuned in, focused into the choice that you have taken. Yeah, if you're tuned out, if there are many things that you're doing versus there's one thing that you're doing, you will see a phenomenal difference when you are focused in. Try to focus in and not focus out, especially when you have made a choice. Now that you have made your choice and you're completely into it, how do you develop mastery? And if you look at that mastery, this is how it looks like. If you do it every single day, consistently, when you compound it, your competence increases. Sometimes my friends don't understand when I say it positively. So let me say the same things negatively to you. If you don't do it every day, you will become incompetent. Okay? Either ways, I'm saying the same thing, just using a similar visuals, right? Now that you have enough mastery, you have enough competence, and now what to do? Oh my God, Karthi, there's so much to learn. Where do I start? All right, look at this. Your ignorance is always going to be far, far greater than the knowledge that you have. And this is going to be true even when you hit your grave, right? Isn't it true? Yes. So if that is the case, what should we be identified with? We should be identified with the ignorance. Anyway, we are going to die ignorance. So go ahead, tune in, my friends, take that little piece of knowledge and go deeper. That is what matters. Why FOMO? Anyways, it is going to happen as a phenomena. Probably you should go in the route of a JOMO, the joy of missing out. You are able to focus on one thing, the 99 things are not there. And that is pretty much a way to develop your joyfulness. And that's where you will not have a FOMO. Okay, now that you have developed this part, let's go ahead. How do I live in this world? There are some rules of the world. You have to understand how these rules work. So the better way to understand the rules is you follow them, you bend them, break them. Just following alone will not help you understand the rules. You have to do all three, especially as entrepreneurs, especially as creators. You should be able to really, really bring that understanding. When you understand rules, you know what to do with them. So that's pretty much where you will go when you know the rules. Okay, now that I know all of this, how do I go and learn more stuff? Here is how our brain learns. Your brain will not be able to think more. Why? Because thinking is very, very energy intensive. So the brain's only job, ironically, is to stop thinking, right? So when you are using your brain, you will be super time efficient. For example, you can run a 42.8 kilometer marathon in 4.28 seconds in your brain. But the actual doing takes a lot of time, practice, effort. So you can use the thinking part for you to do a lot of thinking upfront so that you are time efficient. You will be doing a lot of doing so that you are experience efficient. Now, when you're thinking and doing, you will be reflecting. That is where learning happens. Your learning does not happen when you're learning, but learning actually happens when you're reflecting. And that is the power of using this formula in a right way. So you think a lot, do a little, reflect a lot in the context, you will keep learning. And oh my God, I feel like a fraud, Karthi. There are a few things that I know, not just you, my friend. 70% of humankind goes through this imposter syndrome. Value, when we discount, it becomes an imposter because it comes easy to you. You think that it is not valuable for somebody else, and hence you are kind of feeling this way. So don't worry, keep going. Everybody has it. 7 out of 10, that's a big number, isn't it? So, oh, I have too many things to do. Not really. Just go and ask a question. Something that I love to do, something that I know that I have competence in, something that will really impact the world, something that I can use to make money. Your choice will be maximum 1 or 2. Where is this abundance coming from? You are always in scarcity. So just think about it and do that one thing, right? So your journey of 1,000 miles actually starts with that one step. You can sit and count. There are actually 1,000 little squares there. It starts step by step. So go ahead and focus on this progress. Now, when you ask, okay, now doing all of this, how can I kill it in career? Then this is your formula. Go ahead and find out what is your niche, depending upon your capabilities, opportunities that are available, resources that you have. That is your niche. That is where you will build an empire, not anywhere else, right? So if you kind of compare somebody else, their capabilities are different, the resources available to them are different, they might be chasing a completely different opportunity. You need to take responsibility for your career to figure out your niche. This is it, right? And now, I'm having a good idea about me, about the career. What kind of people I should have in my inner circle? Here is a simple formula for that. Yeah? Anybody, if you kind of look at yourself, right, you don't need anybody to complete you. You need somebody to enable you, right? Just don't allow them to disable you. So you're one already. So when something adds to one, it should become 11. That's a great relationship. If that one is 2, okay, meh, optimal. If that one that is adding to you makes you 0.5, toxic. Stay away from it. This is the golden rule of relationship. Hard but true. Take it. This is the kind of relationship you should be pursuing. Highly enabling relationships, right? Because your community will shape you. The kind of people you're surrounded by, they make you or break you. So it's super important that you do this. Now, by becoming all of this, you should start making money, right? And most of you are thinking about entrepreneurship, and some of you are employed. So I think this slide will change your mind completely. I got this from Naval Ravikant, where he says, earn with your mind, not with your time. If you are trading your time for peanuts, then that's all you will earn. So if you are thinking about financially crushing it, here is one simple way to think about it, right? Now, if you kind of look at everything that I have shared, I have just used the principles of visual engineering. I haven't used anything. Little squares, little boxes, and little arrows, and that's about it, right? So how are we doing so far? Is it making sense? Did we talk a little bit of abstract concepts using simple styles, simple ways of communicating? Yes? Ooh, awesome. Great. And if you really look at it, let me give you a recap. Yeah, this time we will do it in words. And let me see how much you're able to take it with you. Yeah, these are the 15 things we talked about. There's the first 5 elements of your well-being. Your choice is in your control. Living healthy is a choice. Making choice and focusing in completely. Your competence builds consistently by compounding it. And ignorance is far, far greater than knowledge. So why are you having FOMO? Master the rules of life, learning how to learn. It's okay to have an imposter because you're discounting the value. That's about it. There are not that many choices, my friends, and go step by step. Choose your career consciously, choose your relationships, choose your tribe as they shape you, and learn with the mind, not with the time. And if you notice distinctly, I have used visual engineering, I have used verbal engineering. Where do you see the effect was maximal? Where was the impact very high? Be honest. Yeah, of course, visuals. Yes, yes, yes. So, and hence, let me close this by saying, talk less, say more. Yeah. How many of you are great MasterChef Australia fans? Yeah. Yeah. What is that? Ray, if you had just put that visual of idli and sambar, it would have made more sense. Why do all of this? Yeah. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah, it is the visuals. Thank you. And if you would like to get in touch or anything, here you go. My Twitter bird is a little fat, just showing how I am doing. Awesome. Great. Any questions? Do we have time for questions? I'm trying to put all of this inspirations into a book. I don't know when I'm going to do it, but I have something like a 100-day deadline to see if I can translate all of this so that it can be a coffee table book and you can read it every day. Let's see how it goes. I'm planning to do that. Awesome. Any questions that I should be answering? All right. Question, yes. All right. Okay, for time reasons, I will bid a goodbye to all of you. And if there are questions, you know where to catch me. I'm all over the internet, especially in the digital world. So feel free to, and I hope this helped you. And hopefully you will talk less and say more going forward using the principles of visual engineering. We will leave it with part 2 and a sequel. If you want to learn how to do this from like live, how can we start using these principles? We'll do that probably as part 2 sometime. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. You have an awesome, awesome weekend, whatever is left.
Thank you so much, Karti. I'm sure there are like lots of questions which will we be taking at AMA at 4:30 p.m. today. So let's wait for that. But what a mind-blowing session it was, right? She has always delivered such kind of an experience for most of her community talks. And I think she's got the blend of both design and entrepreneurship. And she has channelized in simple way that we feel that, it's so easy to understand, but when we try to comprehend, it gets so difficult. So thank you for making it so simple, and I think you were the perfect start for our design and entrepreneurship track. Thanks, Karti. Next we have Nitya. Nitya is the service designer. She has an experience with entire design spectrum. She works as a head of design at Numa, Innovation and Acceleration Hub. Today, she's going to talk about her journey, reflections, ups and downs. Over to you, Nitya.
So, hi everyone, I think I'm on. Okay, so really good to be here. Thank you, Women Techmakers, for organizing this. I've been following the last 2 days as well, and it's really nice to be part of this community. So today I'm here to talk to all of you a little bit of a reflective journey. I'm a designer, I'm a service designer, and I work at Numa, which is a startup incubator and accelerator. So what this means is that I have done a lot of work in terms of design thinking, working with people, building products that are user-centered. And somehow this journey has taken me to a place where I can share this with budding entrepreneurs to help them to also frame their problems, their startups, even their business side of the design well. And today I want to actually take you through how this journey has been for me and what I've learned from it. And hopefully, I think a lot of you will also be able to resonate with this because I think all of us have, faced fails, gains, ups and downs, and it's all about going with the flow. I think it's very important to talk about fails because usually it's the successes that are celebrated and the fails forgotten. In my journey, I've seen that many of the most interesting moments or stepping stones were due to some things that I failed or that something else failed me. but it really opened doors to new avenues. So before I actually start on this journey, to talk to you a little bit about the design process, because design is the red thread that goes around in my story. So I started off as an industrial designer, which is actually designing physical products. And design is all about finding a problem, understanding who the user is, what are the problems they are facing, and then build something. But it doesn't stop just there. Building, testing, measuring, learning. This is a cyclic process. And the design mindset is all about actually using this cyclic process to keep getting better and better at what you can deliver. In design thinking language, this can be visualized as a very simple double diamond, which I'm sure many of you know. Discovering something, so gain as much information about something as you can. Go deeper, define it further, define the problem, define the kind of solution you want, and then spend some time developing it further. And then when it's time to deliver, you should have gone through multiple iterations so that whatever you deliver is the best that it has, right? So keeping this in mind, I will talk about my first fail. The first fail in my career, let's say, was that I was hired for the wrong job. So as I told you, I was studying to be an industrial designer. And an industrial designer designs physical stuff. So it can be furniture, it can be mobile phones. You can see some of the things that I was working on at that time, which were just devices and products, very physical in nature. And when I got hired, I got into a job that demanded extreme digital design, at least knowledge. And the reason that this fail happened was actually for just one word. I was called a product designer. And this was the time that the digital era was actually starting to grow, and product designers were starting to be called as digital product designers. So just because of that one word difference, someone who's an industrial product designer somehow entered into a digital realm. And just because of one word. But I think this fail, or at least I consider it a fail at that time, turned out to be really good for me. Firstly, it actually opened the doors to UX for me. UX is so important. You can see that the same principles of design, of the problem-solving mindset, can be applied anywhere, even if it is a screen, if it is any other digital interface. So how useful is it? Does someone really need it? Can people understand and learn it fast? Is it memorable, desirable, etc.? So this started me to think about how design can be applied in multiple different places. I learned about how it is to actually not start right with the idea, but also get into a project right in the middle and test it out so that it can be made better. So I actually joined something in the middle of the iterative process. I really learned the true meaning of learning by doing, because I was actually picked up from somewhere and put into something that I believed I didn't have any expertise in. So it was learning on the job. There's no time to really ask. There's no time to figure it out, but to just learn, do, test, and learn. Of course, this comes to adapting to new challenges. This way you understand what are the things that you know, what you don't know, what you need to learn. And the best, I would say, the gain that I got from this was finding a very strong woman mentor. And I think it's very important at this point because, of course, I've had many women mentors before in my life. But this is something in a professional environment where someone shows you how different it can be for women to be in an industry, especially not known as in digital, for example. But this person actually taught me that even though she wasn't a designer, about soft skills, about how you need to empathize with people, how you need to understand different, strategies that actually end up making the work that you do. And this was the first person who actually gave me the confidence to explore something that I thought I knew nothing of. And so the stepping stone from this was that I realized that the physical product design that I liked, I also could be merged with something digital, and the possibilities that it opened up into interaction design. So I started working as an interaction designer, creating installations, interactive installations, etc. But then very soon after that came my second fail. What happened was that even though I was very interested in what I was doing, I started learning and hearing about service design or business design. And I basically jumped again into something that was unusual territory. On the side, you can see this image of T-shaped people. And at this time, this was the rage. People wanted T-shaped people, who have specialty in one thing and generally good at everything else. And the fail for me there was that I was doing neither of them. I wasn't focusing on one thing, or I wasn't generally doing a lot of things. So definitely far away from the T-shaped personality that everyone wanted. But again, you have knowledge. The gains that I got from this, I decided to go and study. And I started learning all about how design is not just one person designing, but how it involves a lot of people. It involves community. I learned about how the best designers, or even people in any kind of team, the design happens when you collaborate, right? How you collaborate, how you put thoughts together. I learned all about how you go about interviews, talking to people, understanding their needs, desires, reading between the lines, etc. And of course, participatory design and facilitation. So I say knowledge here because at this time, it was only information in my ear, just knowledge. I knew what it was. I didn't have any practical knowledge. And so my fail 3, and this is a big one, is that after learning about all of this in theory, I realized that design is actually a very social practice. And for an introvert myself, or at least I had been until, and still am, but I was a known introvert. So for me, it was like, okay, I need to meet people. I need to talk to people, collaborate. All of this is happening together, where you have to talk, you have to speak about everything that you know. You have to share knowledge as well as camaraderie between the team. And so it seemed like a big fail for me. And at that point, I was like, okay, for someone who was very happy doing industrial product design, which is a one-person job where you can sit, do the craft yourself. You don't have much interference of people. At least at that time, that's how I thought of it, interference. But I realized that design is social. And so the gains here was extreme. I started to enjoy collaboration. I started, most of us who do a lot of work in design thinking would be familiar with the phrase of a war room. It's where you set up a room, you have all the walls free for post-its, and you almost lock yourself up there for 2-3 days, whatever, 5 days if you're doing a sprint, almost just talking, discussing, building. It's very social. So I started to understand really how to conduct myself in this, how to be, heard while also listening to everything else, how to make judgments when there's a lot of noise around, etc. Again, the same thing that was a knowledge at that time, just how to do it. I really understood doing it, talking to people. How do you research? Over here in co-design and participatory, you can see that you don't need to really work with a single person in an organization, especially doing design or startup project. You need to be able to talk to founders. You need to be able to talk to vendors, suppliers, other people, salespeople. And so it's really at this point that you need to learn that what you are or what you do, you need those supplementary skills to just take it for you. You need to start building into the environment that you are in, and really to be there in the moment. And the next one, which was design facilitation. And again, this is something where I have to go and talk to maybe 30, 40, even up to 100 people in order to help them actually do a design sprint. And again, this is not quite easy because you know how much confusion it can be. There's high energy, people brimming with ideas, and then you have to be able to come out with good deliverables by the end of it. Make sure everyone is on the same page at the same time. So this really actually put me to the next step of design, not only by myself, but enabling other people, enabling people with different skill sets. You put together someone in a startup where they have very completely different skill sets. There's someone who is really good at illustration, for example, illustration, graphic design, and then someone else has a very sharp business mind. How do these two people work together? How do they share their knowledge so that they can make an output that's interesting for both of them and for the end user? So these are the kind of interpersonal skills, I would say, that from being an introvert, from being happy to in designing something by oneself, the realization that when you want to create something good, when you want to create something that's good for everyone, you really need to build a community around it. You really need to be making a lot of people happy with whatever you are creating. And then, of course, not to mention, in this journey, I really met so many great women mentors. And I don't know whether it's a coincidence or not. I have worked generally with having a woman boss, including now. And these are the kind of stages that I really, respect. I really understand what it means to hold each other's hands in this sense. When you come into leadership, or when you need to even say do design facilitation, in my line of job, I talk to a lot of different kind of people, men, children, elderly people. So it can be anyone, but you know that there's a different way you need to conduct yourselves among different people, and still have that unique person, what you are. You don't have to change yourself for someone else. And so the women mentors that I had, actually, I just found someone who was doing something great, whether it was in design, whether it was in management, whether it was in anything, in a craft, and just tried to emulate them. Just try to say, they are doing this, they have this well. What habits of this can I incorporate in myself? And I think this has been something very detrimental in the work that I do, in moving from very enclosed space to actually advocating design. If you remember, the first fail that happened to me was actually due to a misunderstanding of a little simple term. And it hasn't changed much even now, because there are so many different kinds of design that people often don't know what it is. There's a fashion designer, product designer, service designers, I'm pretty sure is very few people there to do that. And so it's I would say a career that needs advocacy. It needs more people to understand what good it is. It needs a bigger community. And I'm happy now that actually there is quite a bit of people following this. It's become mainstream. But it is because of a lot of people before me, I think, who actually took steps like this, took people under their wing to mentor and to actually bring this out in me as well. And so my next stepping stone, because of this journey, was that I started working in a startup environment. So of course, I didn't become an entrepreneur myself, but joining this world has really taken my practice to another level. And I explain why. So in the beginning, when we spoke about the design process of design being a process where you linearly go from discover something, discover information about a project, define what it's going to be, develop and deliver. These are all design or design thinking terms. And then when you go into the startup ecosystem, one of the many famous terms, of course, here is the lean startup. So this is combining something that we know, combining the empathy, the desirability, feasibility that design talks about, and combining it with the lean startup methodology, which is really being agile, right? You build something quick, you measure it, you learn it, go to your users, test it with them, again, rebuild what they did, um, and actually put these two together. So while working for startups, this is what actually happens when someone is in the beginning of an idea, or when someone has already built something. How do they go to the next step? Do they think of their business? Do they think of making the product itself better, the usability of it? Do they have to do the usability test? Do they have to figure out whether the business is viable? And this is how the process actually of jumping from not being a T-shaped personality, being a generalist, being a specialist, actually helps in being in a startup environment, because you're adaptive. You know that when a product or a feature fails, you can go ahead and build it because of the information that you have had before. And to conclude, this is the best way. The best way to treat obstacles is to use them as your stepping stones. I've laughed at them for sure. Laugh at the mistakes that you make, tread on them, and then definitely it will lead to something better. And I wanted to share this with all of you, mainly because a lot of us tend to think of, maybe I did something wrong, maybe this is not the right move for my career. Would I have, should I have pursued something else, a talent maybe? And all of this is legit. I think there's no way to answer it. But if you are able to turn your obstacle that's in front of you into something productive, then I think that's what makes you stronger. And that's what actually keeps you going in whatever career you choose. So I seem to be done early. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Okay, so thank you, everyone. I hope that these few stories, the fails that I experienced and the story that I could share with you helps you as well. I hope a lot of you will look into or reevaluate what you have been doing right now and actually reflect on it a bit, because to actually close, most of these realizations of the gains that I got from all of this only happened in retrospect. And I hope I was able to be there in the moment a little bit more to actually realize it at the moment. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the conference and the weekend. And goodbye.
Thank you, Nitya. That was an amazing session, I believe. Somebody who would want to become a designer, I'm sure your journey would have been helpful. And we very much understand the value of the women mentors played in your journey. And I'm sure if somebody is trying to pick up a design, I would try sharing this talk with them. Next, we have Arshia and Anjali to engage us with the icebreaker sessions. And they are from Women Techmakers, Jaipur and Cochin. Over to you.
Hi everyone. After the enlightening sessions from the speakers, we are here to entertain you with a small icebreaker game. So let me introduce myself quickly and then we can start playing. I am Arshia, Women Techmakers Ambassador for the Jaipur chapter. And now me and my co-host Anjali are going to play a small game with you. She will give you a brief on what the game actually is. Over to you, Anjali.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Anjali and I am the WTM ambassador and GDG co-organizer for the Cochin chapter. I'm working as a product developer for Survey Sparrow. It's good to see you all today on the day 3 of IWD 20. So, are you all ready to play the game? Please say yes. Show your excitement in the comment section along with an emoji or a heart, please. So, talking about the game, what is the game? So the game we are going to play today is called Two Truths and a Lie. It's very simple. So basically, we are going to show you few pictures of women entrepreneurs, and then in the next slide, we are going to show you three statements associated with them, out of which two of them are facts and one is a lie. All you have to do is to guess which out of the three is a lie and post your answers in the comment section. You don't have to type down the entire statement, you just have to say which is the statement, like one, statement two, statement three, etc. Okay? And as we are showing the statement, we'll also be giving you a brief about them just so that you can get to know them better. I believe the instructions are very clear. We are good to go, Ashya. Let's begin.
Okay, so let's play the game. Here we go with our first woman entrepreneur, Kiran Majumdar Shaw. Do you all know who she is? She is the founder of Biocon Limited. Let's find out some facts about her. The fact one is Biocon primarily manufactures generic active pharmaceutical ingredients. Second, Kiran is a computer science engineer. And third, Kiran used her garage to start her work, and then whatever the company earned in first year was used to buy land with the dream of future expansion. And you all know in these three statements, we have one lie about her. You have to find out which is the lie. You have to just put the number of the lie fact which you are guessing in the comment box. We are eager to see what you guys are guessing. Do comment in the chat box. Okay. Ravi has commented 2. Suman has commented 2. Mini has commented 2. Second fact that means. Okay, we are good to go. Not bad. Everybody is guessing 2. Good, good. Okay, so let's see the life fact. Kiran is a computer science engineer. That is fact number 2. She actually graduated in biology and zoology from Bangalore University and was trained to become a brewmaster. Let's move forward to the next entrepreneur.
All right. So who's the next entrepreneur? Yes, she is Niyati Agarwal, co-founder of Morph.ai. So let's go ahead and see what are the three statements about Niyati. Okay, so these are the statements. Statement one says Morph.ai was founded by four batchmates, of whom one was Niyati. Second, Morph.ai board helps corporates make a sense of data generated on their social media presence. And third, the company's growth began with the global craze of Pokemon Go, and they built a Morph.ai Pokemon Go bot. Okay, so please guess which out of the three statements is a lie and do comment in the comment section. So while you're at it, I'll just give you a brief about Niyati. So Niyati Agarwal is the co-founder of Morph.ai as stated in the slide. So Morph.ai is a platform on which business can create, manage and evolve their chatbots. And she is also one of the great company's Women Entrepreneur Award winner in 2020. Yes. Now let's see what you have guessed after hearing the brief. Okay, Subhatra says it's statement three. Statement three is a lie. Okay, Suman says it's third one. Janal says it's the third one. Kudru Shiny says it's the third statement. Okay, the company's growth began with global grace. Yeah, most of them are going for third statement, it seems.
Third fact.
Okay. Yes, yes. Let's see what
the
are the
life
last.
fact.
Yes, yes. So the life fact is that Morph.ai was founded by four batchmates, in which one was Niyati. That is the life fact. So, in fact, three batchmates met Niyati in their first corporate job, and their belief of becoming an entrepreneur led to the full blown entrepreneurship idea of making boards. So, what does this prove, guys? So, this just proves that when you find the right set of people with similar wavelengths and values as yours, you can create wonderful ideas that can revolutionize the world. All right. So, let's move on to the third women entrepreneur.
And the next name on our list is Geeta Kannan, founder of Equity. Anjali, I can recognize who she is even if the picture would be 10 miles away from me. What do you think? Our friends will be able to guess the lie?
Of course, I mean, she's the pioneer for women in IT movement in India. So I'm pretty sure everybody must find it easy to guess the lie about her.
So are you saying it is going to be an easy fun for them?
Maybe. Let's find out.
Okay, so let's see the three facts about her. First, Geeta was the founder, promoter director, and former managing director of Anita Borg Institute of Women in Technology in India. Second, she studied human resources from a top notch college in India. And third, Geeta served in Infosys as Vice President HR and she was with them for 16 years. So, timer is begin. Now you have to guess the lie. Do comment in the comment section. We are eager to see what you are guessing. Keep guessing. Dilip has commented 1. Okay. While you guys are guessing, Anjali will give you a brief about Geeta.
Okay, so talking about Geeta Kannan, she has over 29 years of experience in the IT industry, and she has held various senior leadership positions and is responsible for driving growth and change in organizations such as Infosys and ANC Bank. She is also the founder of Vequity, a social impact company that drives gender equality for women in technology. So please guess your answers and comment in the comment section. Yes. Have you guessed which out of the three statements is a lie? Okay, Bhavana says it's the second statement that is a lie. Vaishnavi also says it's the second statement. Swarna
Swarna,
Krishnan says yes.
okay.
Most of them goes for statement two. All right.
Yeah.
So let's see what is the lie about Geeta Kannan. So the lie is that Geeta studied human resource from top college of India. Yeah, most of you have got it right, right? So she was never a techie, nor she was from a human resource background, and yet she is today among the most respected voices of the country. Okay, now let's find out who is our fourth women entrepreneur.
And the name is Sairi Chahal, the Shiro, founder of Shiros. Let's find out what lies there about her. Fact number 1, Shiros is a community platform for women offering support, resources, and opportunities for their careers and aspirations. Second, Sairi wears shoes with every dress because of her mantra to make life simple. And third, after graduating, she started working on her idea of Shiros. We are looking for your guesses. Do comment in the chat box. While you guys are guessing, I'll give you a brief about Sairi, so you will be able to guess more about her. Sairi Chahal is the founder of Shiros, which was launched in 2014. Shiros help women seeking careers while still giving time to their homes. She also co-founded FlexiMoms, a platform for flexible jobs and returning professionals. Let's see now what you guys are guessing. Samiksha says fact number 2. Okay. Kodru Shiny says 2. Muskan says 2. Good, not bad. Manthan says 3. Good. Okay, so let's see who was able to guess the lie right. Let's see the lie fact. And the lie is, after graduating, she started working on her idea of Shiros. Actually, Sairi started her career as a journalist and co-founded FlexiMoms, an ally to every person who is in need of flexible job. So the lie was fact number 3. Let's move to our fifth and last woman entrepreneur.
Okay, so the last entrepreneur on our list is Vani Kola. She's the founder of Kalari Capital. Yes, now let's move ahead and see what are the three statements. Okay, so these are the statements. Statement one says that Vani is an Indian venture capitalist. Second statement says that Kalari Capital does not lead investments in e-commerce and mobile services. Third statement states Kalari Capital helps founders succeed and set up a journey together to build transformative companies and enduring brands. Yes, these are the three statements. So before I give a brief about her, let me see who all can guess the right answer. Yes. So I guess I'll give you a brief about Vani first. So Vani Kola is an Indian venture capitalist. All right, there's a hint. She was listed as one of the most powerful women in Indian business by Fortune India. And during her 22-year-old career in Silicon Valley, Vani has been the founder and CEO of various companies like Cetrus Software and RightWorks. Now let's see who all have commented the right answer.
Sameer says fact number 2. Not bad.
Okay,
Okay. Rich
probably
says
two.
fact number 1. Tejas says fact number 2. They are voting for fact number 2 more.
Most of them are voting for fact number two. All right. Tejas says it's two. Everybody is going for two.
Is
Mini
fact
is
number
also
2.
going for two.
Good, good, good. So let's see
Good.
the life fact.
Okay. So the life fact is the second statement. Kalari Capital does not lead investments in e-commerce and mobile services. This is a lie. In fact, some of Vani's notable venture capital includes Myntra, Snapdeal, CureFit, and Dream11. All right. So now that you have found which is the lie about Vani, we have come to an end for today's icebreaker session. Thank you so much for playing with us.
We hope that all you had a good time. And we really hope that you all are safe and well during this tough time. This is a very difficult situation, but we have to get back on our feet and carry on with our lives. We hope that we all together can show others that no matter what's the situation, we can go on and show the fighting spirit. There are much more sessions coming up, so stay tuned and thank you.
Thank you, Arshia and Anjali. That surely was a refreshing icebreaker experience. Hi, I'm Savvy Chen, Women Techmakers Ambassador from Indore, and I would love to be your host for the rest of the day. Moving over to our next session, we present you Severina. She is the co-founder of Preg Buddy, which is a personalized community for women. They have touched the lives of over 300,000 women going through the journey of trying to conceive to motherhood. She'll introduce us to an entrepreneur's journey. Over to you, Severina.
I am Shivrina. I'm the co-founder of Preg Buddy. I hope you guys are having an amazing evening interacting with such folks. I mean, this is all new and we are trying to adjust to this new normal. It seems so different for me to present like this. Yeah, I think we are trying to adjust to it. So I think firstly, I'll start by saying, thanks to Lakshya, WTM, and folks for coming up with this amazing sessions and curating all these virtual sessions to help us share and learn. I think as I was introduced, I run Preg Buddy, which is a women's health platform. So the way I want to do this is take you through my journey and help you, with some of the key takeaways, which can, maybe help you build your own product or help you scale your product at whichever stage you're at. I know there are Q&A sessions towards the end. This feels very one-sided, but I do want to make sure that if you guys, have any questions, I think Lakshya and her team are trying to make sure that we keep it more engaging. So you guys can just shoot off any of these questions around, or maybe interact with me while I'm sharing my journey. Right. Yeah, let me just begin with talking about how we started Preg Buddy. So just a sec. Yeah. So how many of you guys are, I'm just trying to gauge the audience. How many of you guys are actually building a product or are at the early stages of, starting up? So, most of my network or most of the women I meet are always talking about, how do they start up? They have so many things they are motivated about, or there's so many things they, want to solve or are empathetic about, right? So, so my constant question to them is, do you know why you're trying to solve a problem, or do you know why you're trying to build what you're trying to build? So I'm not sure, if you guys can understand what this picture depicts, right? You see like a typical iceberg. You see like a situation where you just see the top part of it, and you really don't understand the depth of the iceberg to even navigate through certain situations, right? So the way we look at this typical iceberg problem is to constantly question us that have we understood the why of the things, right? So the motivation to start a company or a product is different for everyone. So for example, for me, it was, we started Preg Buddy almost 3 years back. For me, it was my cousin. So my cousin underwent a miscarriage, and that's when it triggered me to move into this space. So that being my motivation. So my cousin, is just like any one of us. She's working. She's part of a nuclear family. She mostly does, find solutions to her health problems via Googling or self-diagnosing, and the doctor Google becomes a solution for all. But when she actually underwent this miscarriage, that's when actually the perception changed. So in an era where you're actually going digital for almost everything from food, travel, and everything else, somehow health seemed to be left behind. And that's where we wanted to step in, right? And that being the tip of the iceberg, we really had no clue how to solve it or how to go about it, right? And most of the time we were just asking ourselves that why are we solving the problem that we wanted to solve, right? And it's a repetitive question. It's not just when you're starting, it's actually about every single time that you make a move in your company, you have to ask this question. And I think that's when we actually just began a journey in this space. We started researching, we started, interacting with a lot of mothers. And, that's what brings me to the next point here is, most of the entrepreneurs ask me that, even though you have identified a problem, you've identified the sector you want to get into, the problem you want to solve, how do you actually validate any of your ideas? How do you actually go about it? And I'm sure this is we're not alone in this journey. Everyone, every company who is successful today, or who is at a scale today, has gone through a phase where they actually didn't know how to go about a problem. And most of the companies have solved it by spending millions of dollars on it, and we try to do it as frugally as possible. And I think that's something which I would like to share with you guys, is to figure out ways in which you can validate some of your ideas frugally, right? The initial days, you really don't have like a lot of financial cushion to play around with, but you still want to position your product or position your solution in a way that works best for the users. And some of the ways that actually have helped us is using free tools. So I'll just take you through the journey as well, where, once we identified that we wanted to help our cousin and women like my cousin, we started interacting with a lot of mothers outside hospital. So we would spend typically an hour and a half after work, where we would just sit outside OBGY chambers and interact with them. And what we did was we started connecting them in a WhatsApp group, right? And WhatsApp community. All we did was, talk to a network, bring in some of the mothers on board, and, help them start the interactions with the newbie moms or women who are pregnant, right? So that became our initial, research or the study phase, which you would say, where we started understanding what actually these women want, what they're actually going through, what are they asking, what are the problems they actually face, not just the problems that we see, that there are so many miscarriages happening or there are so many troubles trying to conceive. These are very broadened problems, but you want to get into the depth of the problems, where you understand, pinpoint the problem, and provide solutions around it. So for us, WhatsApp did the trick. It was really good for us to understand the insights. We were, just with 220 mothers in the initial phase, and maybe 5 to 6 odd mothers from our community, we were actually clocking 100,000 conversations in just 4 months of the launch of the WhatsApp community. This was not even the product. We were not even, out there in the market talking about Preg Buddy. It was just the phase where we were trying to understand. And it gave us so much of insights on what they want, that we actually, when we launched our product, we saw a huge rise in the adoption of the product, because we didn't just launch the product and iterate and spend a lot of money on getting our initial users. We actually spent the entire effort in giving time and understanding what the users want. And we did it in the most frugal way possible by using free tools. I would just help you out with, telling you some of the other tools which you can use. There's so many out there. Some of them are just making prototypes. There's a funny incident where we actually had our Marvel prototypes, and we were sitting, at Prost and just having dinner and some drinks, and where, we just saw a pregnant couple walk in, and we were like, just taking our Marvel prototype and talking to them, and they were just so helpful in, helping us understand how the product is, what she would use, what she wouldn't use, how would it actually affect the husband who would be using the problem. And just within an hour, where you were just having a casual dinner, you actually were able to find so many insights around what you were building. And this really did not require a lot of money for doing that, right? So, some of the things which we take pride in is our growth, which we had with $0 spent on marketing till date. And the way we used multiple channels to support our tech costs, to support our, our testing phases, to support our translation efforts. All of these have been done with huge money, and we take pride in doing it at as low cost as possible. And I hope you guys can, use some of these tools day in, day out. And I think one of the free tools today with, Skype, and for, especially to help you out with virtual interactions, you should just go ahead and do your initial study before even, making the product out there. And this is all the phase I'm talking about, which is like the initial stages of your product. So once we had our WhatsApp community, once we understood what they wanted to build, and we launched Preg Buddy. So we launched Preg Buddy as a peer-to-peer support community for women, both for emotional support and for experiential sharing. So we launched with content. We understood what content they're looking for. We had the right content at the right time available and personalized for the women for their journey. We helped them connect with the moms going through a very similar journey. Though we started with just trimester groups, we eventually moved to having more curated groups, because we were constantly understanding the way women were interacting, and we had more meaningful interactions by curating certain groups. And today we are a 300 plus strong couples community. We have helped more than 200,000 odd babies to be born into our family, and it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful to see how we have been growing in this phase. And one thing which I learned being in the space is that high CAC doesn't really mean high quality users. You may spend a lot of money in acquiring these users, but eventually what helped us grow is the trust led community. We understood what are the aha moments for our users. We understood what makes them solve their needs. We constantly listened to them. We constantly had interactions with them. And if you see our call logs, I think our last 15 to 20 call logs on every single day would be our users. So we would spend you don't have to spend hours and hours to do that, but at least set aside like a 15 to 20 minutes or every day just to understand how they're using the product, maybe making some focus groups to understand how they would interact with any new feature you want to bring in. Always try to remove some of the features which they are not using. Don't get so attached to the feature you have built that you want them to use it, but rather iterate in a way that you can remove those features where women for our case users have like a seamless experience on your platform, right? And I think the way we have done is based on trust. We really feel the trust led community has worked for us, and we have seen it working for a lot of other people. And some of the impact which we have gained is the way we have reached out to so many women, and the way women we have reached out to. We have women across professions like Indian Airlines. We have women from housewives to CXOs to nurses as well. And we also have women from the Indian cricket team. And we really did not spend a lot of money in getting these women, but it was all like a network effect that kicked in when we started solving real problems, right? And that's the power of network. That's the power of a trust-led community. So and I think that's that part. And the one thing which we learned, so this was like a year in to helping women with Preg Buddy. What we understood is that we get too attached to the solution which we're trying to provide to our users. Most of the time, we just we become the users. We try to become the users. We constantly use the product, and we feel that, yeah, this works great, this looks amazing, this is an amazing feature which we got in. But what we understood that you shouldn't get married to your initial idea. Though you started with a specific motivation or a specific need in mind, but you need to evolve, and you need to constantly evolve, and you need to constantly ask the question why you're solving this, right? So one of the things which helped us do that is while our users were beautifully getting support from our community and getting answers to most of their problems, the one thing which we constantly felt was they were trying to reach out to us for clinical support. So we had more or less 10 to 15 emails every day where they would just give us send across their reports or scans, expecting us to be doctors. And we could have very easily just reverted by saying please ask your gynecologist, please ask your doctor. And that's how most of our community would respond, because these are very clinical questions where she would be asking around a report or a range of symptom or a vital she is having. But once we constantly listened to these constant questions and emails that we were receiving, we understood that there is a gap. Right, there's a huge gap. There's something which we realized later. There's a gap between a doctor and her own patient, where the woman would come onto platforms like ours to solve these problems, right? And this gap was something which we researched even further. We spoke to the doctors, the care providers, and the hospitals all our users were consulting with, and we understood that the problem was much bigger than what we were initially just thinking as a clinical assurance problem, right? So once we started interacting with the care provider side, which is not even our user base, when we started interacting with our care providers, we understood that in this digital era, doctors and care providers are trying to come online. But they were using tools like WhatsApp to stay connected with our users, and failing with scale, because they would just get constant questions. They wouldn't understand the medical history. They wouldn't understand any of the background to help women out at the time of need. And that's when we understood that we have a huge opportunity here to pivot and this was a phase when we were trying to figure out our revenue models, and I'm sure you guys are in the stages where you would constantly figure out which model works for you. And for us, the constant the nature where we actually were open to make a pivot on a B2C model was what helped us anchor onto a very sustainable business model for ourselves. So that's when we actually launched connected care for providers. So we launched a SaaS tool, which is completely different from what we were doing with PregBuddy. But we used PregBuddy as the care continuity piece for our SaaS tool. So we understood that there is a clinical assurance gap. And we brought in some of the top hospitals as our clients in a very short period of time, like Apollo, Motherhood, Femint, and so on. So connected care became our core revenue model stream, and PregBuddy was used as a tool where women could connect with the providers once they have done their first consultation. So this kind of this entire story of mine of making this huge pivot was obviously very it's not an easy move to make in, but it's also something which helps you look at the bigger picture. So if you are not bogged down by your initial idea, you can always be open to explore more and more of these opportunities which are just right in front of you, but you just didn't want to look at it. Right. So I think I would suggest that you always keep an open mind on making pivots, and also always research on how other platforms are doing this, why things are working for them and why things are not working for you. Right. So in that way, you can constantly make those A/B testings around your product and your revenue models, and eventually land in a phase which works for everyone. Right. And yeah, so this is something which I think I have used so many times, and I think everyone, not just women, everyone should be using this to help you save time, money, and effort, especially in the early stages of your startup. So one thing that helped us really well is to build the network and community. So I've been a part of a lot of these communities, from Google Launchpad to Forbes under 30 to women Techmakers, and everyone has been so helpful in so many ways in shaping what PregBuddy is today. That I really can't emphasize enough on the fact that you should always reach out to these communities and use it to your leverage, right? Some of the key things which I got help from was, the first thing is definitely it helps you open a lot of doors, right? So in initial days, there's no point working in silos, working alone, just building your product head down. It doesn't really help that way. So all you need to do is always be open to interact and look for partnerships for your initial growth, right? And these communities helped us open a lot of doors like that. So we found other entrepreneurs who were doing a similar, who were working in the similar space. We could partner with them to expand our offerings to a user, and also it helps you save a lot of tech cost. I know this will not be something which you will remember at a very high scale, but initial days tech is costly. And all these forums make sure that you have a smooth run for at least your initial stages of your product growth, so that you really don't have to think about the cost, and you're focusing more on what it actually matters, right? What the product actually converts to. So that's the second biggest point which helped us from the community and the network. The third thing is getting feedback and brainstorming. So this is like, I think this is like the biggest thing you should be always constantly doing as founders. Though you have your team, though I know you are like constantly 24/7 busy building the product, but always take out time to discuss some of the ideas that you're building, even before building, with the folks in your network, either from business leaders perspective, or just entrepreneurs who are in the similar space, or just entrepreneurs who had been in this run for maybe a couple of years more than what you guys have, and I've seen a scale which is a bit more than what you guys have. So that definitely helps you reduce a lot of those mistakes, and you would be surprised to know that most of the ideas that we think, or most of the models that we're thinking, are kind of tried and tested by someone. You would always see most successful ones, but there are ones which have actually not worked out, and those are the ones we should always avoid, right? And having these interactions and having these brainstorming sessions helps you avoid those mistakes. It helps you save the cost in making those mistakes. It helps you save the time in which you could have reached the growth despite being bogged down by those mistakes, right? So that's something which you should always be open to, interact with your network, interact and reach out to your network, and get some sort of a brainstorming session done, right? And some, I think I've already told you some of the communities out there. You can feel free to reach out to me to help you connect with some of them and be part of it. I know it does take in some of the time of your regular product building phase, but it's totally worth it. So once you get into it, you will understand how much they would help you do that. And some of our incidences around a product or a partnership or just PR has been from our network, and we really haven't made an effort on putting Preg Buddy out there, but I think our network has done it. So we were able to very nicely find our promoters and supporters via this network who would always put Preg Buddy out there, because you yourself cannot be kind of everywhere to figure out all the opportunities. So someone else would help you out figuring out those opportunities for you. I hope I'm not really going very fast. I tend to do that. So if you have any questions, just please put it across, and I'll try to help you out during my session itself. Okay, yeah. So this is something which I think becomes like kind of a giant of its own, a kind of a company building process on its own. So if you see, this is like a parallel process, right? This is like something which would be always on back of your mind, which would always be there as a phase, because fundraising is not something you should do when you want to do it, right? So just because you need the money right now for growth, you start fundraising. It rarely happens like that. So fundraising for us has always been a phase. It has been a journey. So what we strongly believe in is maintaining relationships with our network, right? And we have been, I think, fortunate and been at the right place at the right time to get the backing of some of the amazing business leaders in India. So we have actually backed by investors like Mr. Rajan Anandan, Mrs. Rekha Menon, we have Vicky Khosla, we have Jayant Kadambi from US, who have been tremendously supportive in our journey, and you wouldn't understand how much they know, how much they can help you, and some of the skills which you or your team would lack, they would always be there to help you out with by supporting in those aspects. So I think fundraising for us has always been about nurturing those relations, constantly being engaged with them, constantly taking feedback from them, making them part of your journey. So it can be either around building your product, or it can be either around scaling your product, or just about some of the things as you want to do with the people you're hiring, right? So even when we started building our initial core team, we had them interact with our investors. I'm not sure how many of you guys actually do that. So I know it's not necessary. I know it's not like they would directly get involved in figuring out whom you want to hire. But what we have seen is the way they get involved in the company building process helps them understand and helps them support you in achieving the bigger picture, right? So I think this would be my key takeaway while doing the fundraise, that you should always be in constant touch with them and help them, keep them posted, constantly nurture them, and make them your kind of a biggest supporter or biggest promoter, because that's your natural PR that you're getting out there, right? So that helps. Yeah, I think I think this is a given, and I'm sure most of the startups have struggled. Most of the startups have done it really well, and most of the startups have spent a crazy amount on doing this. So having a mind share with your users or with the community need not be need not be a parallel effort, I would say. Need not be something which you have to spend a lot of money on, and and need not be something which you should be kind of ignoring on since day one. So for us, this was hard learning. So in the initial, I think 4 to 6 months of a product building, we were like every other folks who were just head down and focusing on building the product, and we rarely cared about talking about it till the product is launched and till the product has reached a certain scale. But I think the perception changed when we actually first got into Google Launchpad. Once we had that, we actually got the taste of putting ourselves out there, right? And it's not just about the PR; it's about the help and support you get once you have put yourself out there, right? So some of the things which such kind of a mind share would help is to get a tremendous amount of inbound support. So when I say inbound support, it's not just people talking about you. It's mostly about folks who are in the similar space reaching out to you for partnerships. It can be about people who are communicating with the target audience which is similar to yours, who wants to just talk about you or put you out there, right? And it can be about getting users, user growth along your product building way. Or it can be just about letting people know that there is a product like this in the market, and there would be they're solving this kind of a problem, and any support is welcome, right? So these kind of soft aspects is what you need not have like a parallel effort, but you should always have this in mind. And it has tremendously helped us, and I think it is hardly talked about or mentioned to a lot of entrepreneurs when they're starting to build their product or starting their journey. So I think some of the things which has helped us is getting featured on Google Play Store and App Store. So yes, this obviously helps you in getting your users, and obviously helps you making yourself get that trust among your users that we have been creating an impact. And some of the things which came in for us was we got we were a part of Forbes 30 under 30 Asia healthcare, and this was something which came inbound, right? And this was via one of our network, right? So and we also achieved or we also received a national healthcare award, which is NEA 2019. And again, this was something which came inbound, where government noticed our efforts in the women healthcare space, and they came to us. And these didn't happen because we were just building a product. These happened because we kept ourselves out there. We have been open to helping grabbing onto opportunities which come forward, and in this process we have represented PregBuddy across almost 10 countries, if I'm not wrong, where we have talked about our impact in women's healthcare space, how we are doing it, how we can help other people do it, and so forth, right? And I think media always talks about the work here that you're doing when it is usually come around from your network and not something where you really are putting out there with money. So these are some highlights where it has helped us, and I think it's not about the PR again, it's about the support that you would get, and I would constantly focus on that aspect, right? So yeah. This is something I think is very important, or at least it's the need of the hour. How can we actually help others, right? How can we actually help others and give back some of your learning, some of your insights, some of your product and resources to others? The way we did it very recently is helping during the COVID crisis by helping using our insights and using our network to help screen citizens. So my co-founder has been leading this entire initiative where we are working with Arogya Setu to help millions of citizens screen themselves via our IVR process, and we have helped almost like I think to trace more than 5,000 odd high risk cases and be supportive to the government during this phase. And these are something which we were able to do because we are in the similar space. We have these learnings that we can help out with. It was easy for us to pool in our resources and get support from our community to extend such kind of a support. And we feel that this is something which you should be doing day in day out. I know it's very hard, but some of the easy tricks where you could do is by just having coffee meetings, right? I spend most of my weekends sitting in third wave interacting with folks, and trust me, I know there is a hidden incentive for me that I learn a lot from others than I think I contribute. So in a way it's a give and take relationship, and trust me, it helps. A coffee meeting for an hour or two, it doesn't really break your schedule or take you away from your product building process, but it helps you build beautiful relations with your network, helps you give back some of the insights, and helps you share and learn things which you cannot just learn by reading all on your own. So this way, this is something which you should be focusing on constantly, and try to inculcate as an habit itself while you're building your product. So I think that is it. I really hope some of my insights have will help you in building your product or help you through your journey. And for rest of your questions or rest of your kind of challenges, you can always reach out to me. I can't guarantee if I can have all the answers, but I'll try my best to help you out. And you can reach me out on my email, or you can connect me on LinkedIn. And I just want to say thank you, and I hope you have like a wonderful and insightful evening ahead.
That was an amazing session by Severina. I'm sure your learnings and insights would inspire many startup founders. Thank you. We have now Swati Bhavanka as our next speaker. Swati is co-founder at evibe.in, the platform for virtual celebrations. She takes care of innovation, business strategies, key partnerships, and sales. She'll be enlightening us on how to get startup ideas. Over to you, Swati.
Thank you so much, Savi. Hello, everyone. My name is Swati Bhavanaka. I think you've seen me as the host early during this session, and now I'm back to share my learnings with the community. So just to quickly get started, I would like to learn how many of you are aspiring to become entrepreneurs. Can you quickly type in your comments? Meanwhile, I'll have the session get started. Today, I'm here to help you get a simple understanding on how to get startup ideas. So we see many people use the word startup for a small business or a new business also. So today, the frameworks and the filters I'm going to explain is mostly about the startup ideas, which has very high growth potential and easy to scale, easy and fast to scale, and has a very high market opportunity. Let's dive into this code right away. So many of us heard this quote, I believe. Success is 1% idea and 99% execution. How many of you agree or disagree to this? Oh, there are a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs in the crowd. So if you agree, disagree, just get into the comment section and just type it in so that, we get an understanding on where we stand right now. 50-50, agree, agree, agree. thumbs ups. So true. So right. So let me bust the myth with this. Right? I was like you, like most of you, where I see lots of answers like 50-50 as well. But I was like most of you, thinking that idea is nothing and it's all about execution. And I haven't realized until and unless I got into my entrepreneurship journey. That is the reason we are talking about how to get startup ideas today. So if we look at this quote, right, it says a great idea is a multiplier of all your efforts and it compounds over time. So what does that mean? Let me help you understand with an example. Let's take founder A and let's take founder B. So let's assume both of them are highly skilled. They have great capabilities and they both have great grit, right? So if we take both of them, A got a great idea, whereas B got a mediocre idea or a bad idea, right? So if we see how they would progress just in a matter of 1 year, we can clearly say that A might have progressed in a great direction and his efforts would have multiplied, whereas B would have also his efforts, though matter both of them has put in 100% of their efforts, it goes in the wrong direction and it adds up to nothing. So in the bottom line, initially, even before the startup takes off, when the startup takes off, execution kicks in. But before the startup takes off, a great idea is really important. This is one of the best quotes I have come across recently from James Courier. This is one of the top venture capitalists from the Silicon Valley. He says the biggest waste in our ecosystem is great people working on mediocre ideas, right? So let me start with this idea. How does this sound to you? Let me pitch. We all know there are like many pet owners, right? We know there are millions of pet owners in the West. How about we develop a social network for pet owners? How does this idea sound to you if I'm pitching to you right now? Do you think it's a great idea or do you think it's a bad idea? What do you think? Just share your views based on whatever knowledge you have so far. So I think there are like multiple viewpoints. I'm sure each of you might be having different opinions on how to go about this idea. For me, it sounded fantastic. Even 3 months before, like I could imagine there are like millions of pet owners, and I could imagine it's a huge social network, and there's a lot of craze and there's a lot of trend that is going on for pets, right? But how do we really evaluate if this idea is right or wrong? I have come up with a filter that we can learn today based on all my learnings and an excellent article from Paul Graham. So that filter is called as PDF. P stands for the problem, and there's there should be depth to it, and the idea should be futuristic, right? Problem. So when we talk about a problem, I think we have seen lots of designers and entrepreneurs today, and they said that it started with their own problem or from their network or friends or family, the problems they have seen from, and they can totally relate and they can understand there is a problem that is existing in first place. So that is first filter, making sure the problem actually exists. Next, so if we take the depth of it, so when we take this idea, right, it looks very broad. They're like broad range of audience, and if we actually go talk to them, we will hear different viewpoints. But what Paul Graham suggests is there should be really some small set of user base who really needs this idea, whatever you're developing. Let's say I'm pitching a solution saying that I have a social network for pet owners. There should be at least some of the people who should be willing to use this platform, right? And next, it should be futuristic. Like definitely the growth should be high, and it should be obvious that you're building for the future. If we take this filter and apply it to the pet owner social network, we clearly see that we have no idea about this PD. It's clear that it sounds futuristic, it's huge and all those things, But if we talk about do problem really exist for this, or is there really some users who use it right away? So there is actually a case study done on this, and there are like lots of people who are trying to develop this kind of solutions even now. When I go out on networking, who pitch to me saying that, we're developing Tinder for pets, dogs, many things like that. But there's actually a real case study done, and what exactly happened was they went talk to the users, and users were saying it's fantastic. The pet owners were saying that it's really amazing, it's really fantastic, but not even one was willing to look at it, and they were not ready to try it. So it sums up to what it actually summed up to was a zero user, right? So according to this, so the filter, whatever we are using, according to this filter, the idea has failed, right? Then let's move on to, so let me help you share some examples of a homegrown startup stories, which nicely fits into this filter. I'm sure you all must have heard about Practor, you must have heard about Redbuzz, Ola, and many more. So I would like to share my personal favorite story of Redbuzz, because he's also Telugu, I'm also Telugu, and he's from Bitspilani, and I can totally relate to his story, right? So the Redbuzz founder, Fanindra Sama, he actually started building Redbuzz when actually he hit with a problem statement. He actually wanted to go to home for Diwali, and what exactly happened was he could not find any tickets, despite trialing for running to many travel agencies. We might have, if you at least are experienced, and if you might have witnessed the 10 years back process of how do you book the tickets, right? You will have to go get your tickets and things like that. So failing to get the ticket, he thought that it is a very simple solution and they could do something about it. There was nothing like they wanted to build a startup, actually. They wanted to do something about it, and what they started building a prototype, right? So they started building this, and they could easily understand that. So if we go back to the PDF filter, then he personally knows the problem exists, and he knows there are some users, his colleagues, who would need the solution, and he thinks that, he felt that it's a very simple problem to solve, and he went ahead building with it. Eventually what happened was it became a very big thing, because lots of other people in the market during that time were chasing flight bookings, but they were onto building something very Indian, right? Bus ticket booking, and it has gone big. How do we actually know that, the idea can go big or not? Let's discuss more about it in the next slides. So I'm sure you can say that it is very easy to say that, once the startup is successful, we can say that they had this, they didn't have this. So I want to share our own journey so that we can relate to it and understand it better. So the way we started evibe.in was from our, actually what we did was me and my co-founder, colleague back then, we both were working at a startup called as Nonscape, and it was a gaming simulations company. So that was for B2B market. So we were building those products for the business size, and we felt that, the number of users who are using these products are quite limited, and we were always fascinated by doing something huge, building something for millions, right? It, like the same way, like when we talked about social network for pet owners, it sounds very huge, and you're kicked about it and you would like to do it. So we were exploring a lot of options ourselves on what to do, but not essentially like a startup, but as a side project, and see how it goes. And then we found none of the ideas plausible, because we always thought that, they are small and we could not find it so exciting to build something on our own. Eventually what happened was, me and my colleague, we decided to get married. We told our family that we are planning to get married, and though they were shocked, they ultimately believed in it, and they gave a go ahead, and it was our time to do the rest of the things. We thought that, coming from tech backgrounds, just like how you plan your holidays, we thought that, we can plan a wedding online. I'm sure a lot of you might be thinking about Band Baja Bharat, but Band Baja Bharat is not what we were thinking. We were planning to build something like a Zomato, old Zomato, which was there for content. Like, you can see all the options, available for wedding. Just click on the options and then, just get the wedding ready, right? So this is something that we had in our mind. Immediately we thought that, this millions of people would be getting married, and there'll be so many people like us who would use tech and would find this solution helpful. That is how we got started with evibe.in. And I would say this idea was very similar to the pet owner social network idea. Why? Because when we went into the reality, when we went to the users, actually what happened was, the users, like, even for our wedding, we thought that, such kind of platform should exist and we should do something about it and things like that. But eventually our parents got done just within hours, because everybody was there in the neighborhood and they were not online. So the biggest learning for us was, the decision makers were not online, and there were no users to take it, right? Similar to pet owner social network idea. But luckily, when we were doing, like, I think Shivrina also told that, when you have an idea, you go talk to the people in your network. Then what we did was, we were pitching this idea, some of our seniors, people from our peers network, we pitched and we said that, this is what we were doing. But luckily what we got was, we found parents, like our seniors who already have kids, they wanted to do birthdays online. So until then, my idea of a birthday party was something simple, like what we used to celebrate in childhood, right? Small cakes and probably some chips and cool drinks, something like that, and the birthday stuff. But in Bangalore, what happened was, the moment we thought that, okay, let us try, because users are already ready, we went live on Feb 10th and we got our first paying customer on Feb 11th, right? So this has gave us a little sense of what exactly was happening. But what happened was, we actually went to the customer party and understood how actually it gets done. It was amazing. There were like so many customers who were coming to us organically via Google search, and there was no looking back from them. What we realized that, we hit a gold pot, probably because there are so many customers, they're ready to pay, and we could build a platform. Then what we did was, we expanded across different categories. We didn't just stick to, kids birthdays, and we made it to all the private occasions which are bookable online, unlike weddings. We expanded to cities, and what happened was, we were able to eventually build $1 million in traction also with this same idea. So with this in store and planning to expand to other occasions and cities, coronavirus has disrupted the businesses. Like most of the businesses, it hit us hard. Our business went down to zero just within few days. And then it's the same users who came to us to asking us to do something about it. Because there are already existing users or customers to you, they came back to us and asked us to do something about it. And that is how we have come up with a platform for virtual celebrations. It was unbelievable for us, and it was unbelievable for them also. The way people are celebrating online, even including the grandparents, is crazy. This is something we have never anticipated. It is all thanks to COVID. I'm not saying in a negative sense, but the digital disruption that is happening with the industry, with the customers, is something that we can never imagine, right? So it's been like 1 month since we started doing these things with the existing platforms, like video conferencing platforms like Zoom, Google Meet, and all. But now we are on a journey of building a platform on our own, a global consumer app targeting for people. They can celebrate on their own using this platform, and there are like some really cool features that we are planning to build. So I would give the heads up that there are always bigger possibilities that has popped up the moment we got into this idea, much bigger than what we have seen in the last 5 years with eVibe in the previous business model. But we would want to try out, test, and see how the users would take it. So I would still call it an experiment and would love to keep you posted on how things are going. So how can you assess an idea, or how can you get a startup idea, right? Now you know what is a good idea. You know some success stories. You heard some of the stories today. You heard our story. But how can you come up with a startup idea? It's a simple framework. It is called as a JBL framework, right? It's a journal, build, and love. I would say, so if going back to our PDF is the basis on which you generate ideas. So the first step is you generate ideas, right? So start challenging each and everything. Start challenging each and everything that is happening to you. If you feel something is a problem, if you know people, if they already have any problems, start making the journal, right? Make a list of the problems. Probably you can do it every day, probably you can do it weekly, based on the intensity at which you want to do a startup, right? Start making notice of what problems exist around you. Once you make a list, once you make a journal, then you pick the ideas which you love the most, and which you can build. If you are picking an idea because it is fancy, or probably you don't know if you can build it or not, then probably there might be some difficulties that we would face eventually so far. If we see Karti's talk, I think she was talking about the one you understand the most, the one you can build. These are our own capabilities, and that is what would make probably a success. We cannot tell it yet in the starting, but this is an excellent framework for you to come up with lots of startup ideas and filter. And let me give you a heads up that it is not about few hours of brainstorming. I've seen lots of people doing ideas boot camp, that boot camp, this boot camp. If you have to arrive at a good idea, I'm sure like it takes few months to years process. I'm just giving you a heads up if you haven't started this journey yet. I think this is the much used quote. We are seeing there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. I am bringing back this quote because we are personally witnessing this in our own journey. When we're building virtual celebrations, the way customers are adapting digitally to it, even from the remote villages, even from the other cities, other countries, wide variety of audience, is something that we have never experienced. This wouldn't have had been possible without the COVID digital disruption. So I would suggest, if you have been an aspiring entrepreneur, or you have some ideas, or you want to do something about it, this is a great time to start now. I'm sure it is going to be a tough journey. I am here to help. There is a big community here to help. Shivrina told there's a big community. There's a Google Launchpad community. We are part of Google Launchpad Build. We are part of many communities too. There are like many people out there to help you out. I am personally there to help you out with whatever knowledge I have. I would only like to leave you with one message. Now that you have time, you just get started. Thank you. And you can reach out to me either on LinkedIn or Twitter. Happy to help. And thank you so much to Lakshya and Women Techmakers for an amazing opportunity. I am enjoying my journey both as an entrepreneur and as a community organizer, and the kind of visibility and all the help and support that I'm getting is amazing. I'm super thankful to you.
Thank you, Swati. I'm sure your talk has inspired many of us to start thinking about having our own startups. From one Swati to another, in the journey of an entrepreneur, if things always happen at the worst possible time. What makes it worth it is how you treat the situation. This talk takes you back 7 years and encompasses all the life lessons that Swati has learned on her journey. Buckle up. Over to you, Swati.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for attending this event. I'm so glad that you're here. I think most of you by now would have guessed that the secret to start a company is to have your name as Swati, right? No, that's not it. I'm just going to take you through my journey. I wanted to tell basically my story and maybe inspire people to start their own companies in the future, right? I've titled this talk A Wonky Journey because I'm sure that is the story of every single entrepreneur. There's a lot of famous stories out there that overnight success, midnight success, I did this, and I became $1 million. Unfortunately, that's not the truth. If it was, we would have 1 million entrepreneurs by now, right? So my journey is filled with bursts of energy, failures, lots of them, and successes. Multiple successes, right? Because success is not a goal or a place that you reach. It's a constant work, right? All right, so I'm going to start. I'm just going to basically take you through 6 mini stories that I've learned that have happened to me over the past couple of years that I've run my organization. Right? So we're called Script. We're a global technology consulting company, and we collaborate with ambitious brands and people. Our core of what we are is people and technology, right? We build great things, we work with great people, and we just enjoy ourselves. You can see here that where most people would have just added like their logo, their brand name, things like this, I've actually chosen to add my team here because that's just who we are. Script and me, right? We've been here for about 7 years on planet Earth. We're a cozy company of 17 people. It's crazy to me when I say this. Here we are. Our culture is trust and responsibility. We take that very, very seriously. Our initial investment was $220. What is that? $220, $220 million, 220,000 rupees? What is it? To be really honest, it's 220 rupees. The day that we started this, we were all, me and my co-founders, were all college students. It's crazy, the journey that we've taken, and it's amazing to actually be here and still talk about it, right? What we believe in is intelligence through design. We not only love tech, but we love building great design and adding to it. And finally, we love Pani Puri. There is not a day previous to the pandemic that we've gone without eating Pani Puri. We absolutely love it. Okay, so I've heard a lot of people come to me and say, hey, I have this great idea. It's really secretive. I'm not going to talk about it. I don't want people to steal my idea. I'm going to start this a month from now when I get investment, when I find my CTO, when I build my team. You've got it all wrong. Today is the day, right? Most often than not, the life of an entrepreneur is not the idea, is not where they've come out from. It's more of a personal journey than an external one, right? No matter what's stopping you, keep that away. You do not know the future. You don't know what's going to happen in an hour from now. Just believe that today is the day and go for it, right? If someone had asked me sitting here now, would I recommend this journey to anyone? I would tell them no, please. Don't become an entrepreneur just because it's fancy, right? But if you're going to come back to me and say, no, I believe this is right for me, is when I'll start supporting you, right? The life of an entrepreneur is, you will never know when is the right time to start. Just believe in yourself and just figure out that today is the day. Whatever you do, do it today. Another thing that I've learned is to keep learning and teaching, right? Don't ever be stagnant, right? You might have a great idea right now. You might think, you know what, I'm going to build something in blockchain and AI because that's the new thing and that's what everyone's going to love. A day from now, that might not be the truth, right? So the only thing that I would suggest future entrepreneurs is to keep learning, right? Figure out what you're good at, what you're bad at, and keep making yourself better, right? In the space that we're in right now, right? We're all tech forward, right? I'm sure a lot of us here are developers, are data analysts, things like this. When it comes to starting a company, unfortunately, that's not the only skill that you need, right? There's a lot of complementary skills. There's marketing, there's sales, there's culture, there's people. Because at the core of any company is people and how you treat them. So keep learning those skills. and keep teaching it back. That takes me to my second point: improve your non-core skills, right? Your idea may be one small thing, right? Or a big thing, whatever, right? It could be a mobile app, it could be a web app, it could be something that helps people, whatever it is. But the only thing that's actually going to help it move, help it actually blossom into a huge company out there is how do you talk to people? How do you show customers, or how do you convince customers that this is the right thing to buy? And with that, it comes your first non-core skill, sales, right? It's incredibly important. You might not get it at the first time that you do this, but keep researching, keep learning about your customers, keep figuring out, keep learning what is out there, and bring that in. Bring that into your company, bring that into your people, and bring that into your product. Another core skill, non-core skill that people often overlook is marketing, right? A lot of us think that it's just sales. I'm going to take this product and sell it to people, and there's that. I'm going to make my money. People often tend to forget there's just this brilliant thing called inbound sales, right? Sales that happen when you're asleep. And how does that happen? That sounds like magic. I would love to just sleep all day and make some money, like roll in some money, right? That comes with you building a brand, investing in marketing, right? Showing the world out there what you do in a very simple, attractive, and honest way, right? Make sure you got those two skills down. And the third skill is to build an amazing culture, right? You're not going to succeed with just one person. Most of the companies out there have a team of co-founders. As you grow, you're going to hire more people, you're going to build a team, right? The most important thing to any business at its core is its people. And it boils down to how you treat them and how you build a culture that allows you to grow, bring in new ideas, build a culture where there's no judgment and there's always pushing people forward, right? That's an incredibly important skill as an entrepreneur. And I hope you pick that up in your journey. All right. The fourth skill that I've learned is you will fail. No matter how much you prepare for, no matter how much you say, at this point of time, I'm going to hit these many customers, I'm going to make this amount of money. It's not going to happen, guys. I'm so sorry to tell you this. If you are thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, it's not a single path journey. It's not a straight path. You will fail. The easiest way to realize this is to accept it, right? It's completely fine. We're going to fail. The most important thing is that you get back up again, figure out what is the next best thing to do, and keep moving forward. There's a hugely important concept in the life of an entrepreneur called pivoting, right? You need to figure out at what point of time, whatever you're doing is working or not. Have certain metrics that you've put up. Let it be the number of users that you have, let it be the amount of reach that you're doing, whatever it is, put some metrics that will help you guide you along your path. And when one or all of those metrics fail, you know that it's time to pivot. You've not failed, but it's just that your product or your idea has failed. And that's completely fine. What you've learned is invaluable. So be okay with that and accept that it's going to happen. It's inevitable. All right. The next big thing is, yes, you've accepted that you failed, but do not let it go, right? Do not accept it as your one single journey and that's it. I'm not going to do anything. No. Just keep believing, keep trusting, figure out what to do next, right? The journey of your company is often very, very personal, right? It boils down to what you are or who you are as a human being, and it's a reflection of that. So it's completely fine if something fails. Keep believing, keep pushing yourself, and just take the next best thing, right? All right. The final thing that I've learned is no matter how much we prepare for, it's not going to be enough, right? There's always something that's unpredictable. The most easiest example is what we're living in right now. Who would have thought that someone who wanted to have a bat for breakfast would cause such a disruption to the entire world? That's just life, and that's just being an entrepreneur, right? Only change is constant. Be always prepared. Keep your mind very clean, very open to change, and accept it. Only change is constant. Right? All right. Well, those were my 6 lessons that I've learned in my huge journey of being an entrepreneur. At this point of time, if you've got any questions, I'd love to answer them. We've got about 5 minutes left. I would love to just hear your thoughts. I would love to help you out in your journey as well as an entrepreneur. If you've got any questions, please let me know. Yeah. All right. So if you want a little bit of a background of what we do, we're a global technology company. What we do is act almost as an R&D for major enterprises across the world. What we do is basically go in there, go into an enterprise, figure out what they're missing, how can we complement that with technology, and then bring it forward, right? We're completely technology agnostic. We're not a mobile shop, a dev shop. No, we're not that. What we do is basically figure out what could be best done and actually go ahead and implement that. This largely comes from our background, right? Our background is completely in tech. We were probably the worst 3 co-founders to start this company because we were all from a technical background. But we picked it up along the way. We figured out what to do next and finally made this journey possible. Yeah. All right, then. Well, I hope you guys have picked up something from my talk and all the talks that we've had before. Feel free to reach out to us on our social media channels, and I look forward to syncing up with you guys. All right, thanks so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Swati. I'm sure your journey with script must have been a roller coaster. Be it technology or any field of work, the front face of any product is its magnificent design. It has the power to lure customers in or out of business. Our last speaker for today is Aditi Chansoria. She is a passionate designer and has experience working with startups in the past couple of years. She'll be enlightening us on the role of design in startups. Over to you, Aditi.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Savi, and thank you for inviting me to this platform. It definitely is giving me an opportunity to share a few things that I've learned while working with startups over the past couple of years. So what I really wanted to discuss today, or rather talk about, is the role of design in startups, right? And how do you really start working towards a minimum viable experience and not just a minimum viable product? And why do I specifically want to talk about role of design in startups is because design by its very nature is considered to be a process, right? Which involves various steps, right? Discovery, understanding the problem, finding a solution, and repeating it n number of times until and unless you figure out the right solution. This kind of an approach works perfectly fine when you are working in an organization which has reached certain level of design maturity. But in startups, what happens is that the ecosystem is very closely knit, right? Say about 50 people, 60 people, they're working together day and night. Everybody is making sure that the decisions that are being taken are correct. And then this circular loop that the design keeps working in, if it is not introduced to others, it later on wastes a lot of time in convincing others and telling everybody that, hey, whatever we are proposing is right? So with time in and time out, what a designer working at startups or the design team in the startups need to do is that introduce the rest of the people to this process as and when required, right? So like I said, this is something that's needed, but what's this all about? Why is there a need of doing this, right? And I think like most of you who are designers or even developers for that matter or project managers might have come across this phase where the developers basically where the designers, I'm sorry, they are going through the chaos. They are figuring out what the product needs. They attain a certain level of clarity, and then they propose a solution, which then they distribute through the developer as well as go ahead and show it to the decision makers or the product owners for their feedback, right? And the flaw that this system has is that they definitely show the end result, but they do not really give them the clarity that they have attained while figuring out the solution. And because of this, what happens is that the biases that are needed to be eliminated are not eliminated, and the developer is confused as to whether he should be listening to design or whether he or she should be listening to the product owner. And this communication gap, if it is not addressed at the right time, just keeps amplifying. And no matter how good the design team is, it still is not able to perfectly create the intention, or I would say ship the right experience, because there are so many biases already into the system, which eventually is not anybody's goal, right? So with time, after working with so many startups, we have realized, me and my team, of course, we have realized that, hey, there are a few roles that designers should be playing in some time or the other, so that the others also get a peek into their work, and then they're convinced with whatever work they're doing. And yeah, so I'll be discussing about those roles. I've figured out, like, I'll be discussing just about the 5 roles, and after that I do have a few other roles as well, but that probably we can take some time else. And let's get started. So the first role is of a curious student, and right, yeah, and that phase is basically like, hey, I'm dumb, and I know that I'm dumb. You have to tell me everything, right? And this basically actually helps in making sure that the teacher here, who is the product owner, knows what he's not knowing. So when I keep asking them so many questions, I keep forcing them to answering certain facts that they haven't even thought about, it puts them into a position where they actually start feeling, they actually start thinking, okay, what does my existence even mean, right? And that's when that's the time that I'm forcing them to go through a chaos, because to attain clarity, they also need to go through the chaos, right? And they initially start talking about the problems in a very abstract fashion. And once these questions are introduced into the system or into the room, their abstracted idea, which has not been articulated pretty well, starts getting articulated in a very, very communicable fashion, which is transferable into a product, right? Say, for example, somebody would start beginning by saying that, hey, I need an application to build, I need to build an application to hail taxis, right? But when I keep asking them multiple questions, they start coming down to the fundamental requirements, which is, hey, I need to build a product that basically helps people or users go from point A to point B, right? And this actually, the outcome of this is so perfectly articulated that the first step towards building of the product is so productive in itself that the rest of the steps are actually trying to match this first step, and there are less chances of you wasting time. That's the first role, right? Coming to the second role, which is basically a role of a storyteller, of course, a fascinating role. But the idea behind this role is that whenever we tell story, it actually communicates the intention and purpose in the most perfect way, right? That's why we tell children so many stories, right? And these stories basically are leaves imprints on people's brain, and they're remembered so like they convert into good memories, right? And why is this important is because whenever we are creating use cases and we are nailing down the scope, if I just send out an email telling them, hey guys, this is the scope, these are the use cases, people might not really remember it so much, right? And to give them a perfect vision, I need them to be able to feel what I'm feeling. So what we do is that we convert it into a story, and the highlights of the story are converted into illustrations of storyboards, and we stick it right everywhere in the office. This actually brings them on board with the fact that, hey, this is the vision that we all are aspiring for together, and they stop considering themselves as average users, right? And that's what one of the things that Facebook had faced for a lot of time, that their designers were from America, and they would consider themselves as average designers. And after say 2-3 years, their parents started using mobile, which were parents started using Facebook, and they were essentially from India, they were from South America, they were from South Africa. And this approach of considering themselves, the designers to considering themselves as average users, did not really work fine. Right? So this is the second step we do. We first bring clarity into the system, and then we start making sure that this clarity is conveyed to everybody in the form of a story. The third role, which we all play, and I really like to call it a nuclear reactor, whereas the others, they usually call it an idea reactor, where we actually, there's a phase where we welcome everybody who is interested in giving ideas to us into a room. We close that room and we make them work like children, right? We divide them into the teams, and then they are just going around and figuring out the ideas and doing this and that. The reason why we found that this was an important thing to do is because with our experience, and I'm sure if there are designers who are there in the who are actually watching this video, you know that as soon as I take wireframes into the room, I'm showing wireframes to people, everybody starts giving their ideas. Like, hey, where's this button over here? Hey, why should we highlight this? Hey, let's do this. Let's add this also. And that becomes a very tricky situation to handle. But if you think about it deep down, it's actually the innate ability of anybody that comes out, which is of proposing solutions, which is of solving problems, right? And that is something that we all have always been. It's just that a few of us who are problem solvers are take that up as a career choice, while the other just do it on the day-to-day basis, right? And if that weren't the case, we probably might have not evolved. So what we do, we trigger an idea, we lead them into a room, we do a practice for half an hour. For half an hour, we divide them into a team, and then boom, we get so many ideas, which is a pool of ideas, and that actually also promotes the fact that, hey, everybody in the organization is as close to the product as the designers are, right? So that's the third role that we play. The fourth role, which I really admire the most, is the role of a sculptor, right? So why a sculptor as an artist is somebody who's like, I really respect, because these guys, what they do is that they convert a solid material into a masterpiece by subtracting layers of things, of materials that are not useful, right? And as designers, I'm pretty sure you guys might have also, even if you're not designers, even if you're regular developers or you're product managers or product owners, you must have realized that after a while, no matter how much you try to limit the scope, you get caught into a loop where you are figuring out, hey, I have so much time, but I also have so many ideas, right? So these features which you are actually looking at, they are needed to be eliminated, right? And of course, it's not that you are going to eliminate all the features at once. They're going to come up in the future, but it's about mindfully selecting the ones that are to be picked up at the right time. So you know how the good designer should be knowing how to sacrifice this and rationally sacrifice them, not just sacrifice for the sake of sacrificing, but actually rationally sacrifice them. That's the fourth role that a designer should be playing while working in a startup, along with the process that we follow. The fifth and the most important step that we are thinking that we should be playing is that the role of a perfect partner, right? And I know, like, everybody has a few ideas about how a perfect partner should be, and we can keep talking about it on and on. But from our perspective, from a designer's perspective, we see that there are a lot of ego clashes, and I'm sorry if I'm using the wrong word, but there are a lot of clashes in between designers, developers, product managers, product owners. There are project managers also involved, and there is C-suite, and all of them are constantly competing against each other, and they are not really working together for the betterment of product, especially in the case of startups, right? So what a designer essentially needs to understand or play a role of is of a perfect partner who is not egocentric, who is actually empowering everybody to make the right decision, right? And that's what I mean when I say that the designer should be playing the role of a perfect partner, who is not just like there as a guest, right? It's not treated as a guest in the room, but he's given the freedom to go back to that storeroom where there's a spider and then there's a spider's web, clean that up, wait till the whitewash happens, and then leaves, right? Because design, and I'm pretty sure the other designers as well, they would actually not stop working on any design until and unless the design is shipped and is being used by the user. So these are a couple of roles that are that we have come up with that a person should be playing while designing for a startup, I would say. And yeah, so this is something that I would like to end with. And if you have any questions, we can actually address them now or in the session after this. You all can reach out to me at aditi@infinitive.com, or you can send your requests, or you can follow me on Infinitive on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to help you there. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Aditi. Your talk was surely enlightening. To our lovely audience, please fill in the feedback form goo.gle/IWD feedback, and we will share your participation certificates with you by the 10th of June. We are now open to AMA. We have curated a list of the questions from our audience, whatever they posted on chat. Can we have all the speakers on the stage, please? The session will be curated by my co-host Swati.
It's been an amazing day, and I guess our speakers were asking about the questions right from the start. We will go through all the questions right from the start. There are questions for each one of you, and we will start with Karti. Karti, this question is from Tanvi, and the question is, she is asking, should we make decisions and choices considering the present conditions more or the future one? Okay, I see Karti is not here. We only have Nitya. So Nitya, question to you. Is being a generalist considered a disadvantage over being a specialist?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, so very interesting, the talk about generalist and specialist. To have a simple answer, I would say no, it's not considered a disadvantage. But at the same time, I think it's a lot more about what your career path is and where you fit in. So it's important to understand this thing, whether you're a generalist or a specialist, in the environment in which your career, your job is in. As I mentioned before, many of the startup teams or product teams in corporates, the best teams are the ones in which there's a balance of different kind of people. You always need someone in a group who knows something really well, who will be able to make a decision. You need someone who is a catalyst, who will sort of put things together.
So did we lose Nitya's connection? I guess we will move on to the next question. To Shivrina. Shivrina, this question is from Bhavani. She is asking, with communities, you always get a lot of help, advice, and support. But how do you streamline them into a decision?
Yeah. Hi, Swati. uh, yeah, feel free to join in here as well. I think you and I both have experience firsthand on getting help from the community. Let me. I think I'll just briefly give you certain things which are just on top of my head on how you can evaluate some of these help and support that you get. For me, I think the first thing that works really well is discussing it with my co-founder. So when I say I discuss it with my co-founder, I basically mean that if since the beginning we have identified these skills, which are complementary to each other. So we know what we are good at, what my co-founder is good at, and what we have tried to do is fill in the remaining gaps with like a kind of our investor or an advisor who can give us that perspective in making any sort of a decision, right? So your help or the support or the advice that you're receiving is majorly around a problem that you want to solve. So you can present more of these like an A/B testing or just an idea that you want to take up, and eventually discuss it out with your pool of experts, as you would call it, and then you can come to a decision around it. The second thing I think that has worked for us is to kind of understand that most of the time the advice you receive would be gyan. Okay? And there's nothing wrong in that, because the reason why it became a gyan is because you never asked the right questions. I yeah okay.
Right.
Am I there? I see
Right.
a white screen. Yeah, am I there? Yeah.
I can see you.
So yeah, you try to avoid in not making an advice or a help into a gyan by asking the right questions. So you need to know why you're out there for a support that you're seeking. Ask the right questions, and I think that in itself helps you streamline a lot of your decision making. And I think the last thing would be also to identify the source of the help. I know you would be out there in a lot of channels, and it's good. I mean, you cannot really make out in day one that what really helps you, but identifying the source or mapping the source to a relevant kind of a vertical. For example, if you want like a design help, you really don't go to like someone who's not an expertise in design and ask them and then eventually decide based on that. So you need to identify and map your kind of a source to how they are skilled and why it makes sense to look or listen to that kind of an advice and bring into your entire decision making process. I think these three should more or less help you out in your initial phases, and rest is I think your gut feeling and the way you have been testing out with your users.
Right. I think you were quite spot on with giving three solid points on how do you convert them into a decision, right? Ultimately, you will know you want to take this or not.
Yeah, that's true.
I think this question is for myself, from Bhavani. Should we pursue an idea if there are already enough people doing it? How to come up with your value proposition? Bhavani, that's an interesting question, really good question. And there are like lots of opinions and data points out there. My recent learnings is something that I've understood, which was very new to me. When you have competition, it's not really bad at all. It in fact validates that this is something that people might already probably they have this problem and they're looking out for these solutions. But one thing we need to be aware is the same frameworks that I would apply. PDF, can you relate to the problem? Do you have an in-depth insight of what your users actually want? If we have both of these and if we think we have a better edge, we can still go for it. I hope that answers, and there are other entrepreneurs also in the panel. So if you want to add anything, please feel free to add. Moving on to, yeah.
If I may add a couple of cents
Yes.
to that previous question.
Please.
So market validation is actually a hard thing. Market is very slow. As an entrepreneur, you're like really fast. You are on fire, right? So what happens when you have competition? They are actually doing the validation for you. So having a competition less space is actually very scary, which means that you have thought about something which nobody else thought was important. I mean, that's a scary place to be in. So I would kind of check out if my idea is already tried by somebody and if somebody is very, very successful with that idea, because that is when I know for sure that there is a market and there are some people willing to exchange value called as currency, and you are giving value. So there was this beautiful ad by I think by Daimler to BMW, or the other way around. So they said that it was so boring without you for the first 30 years, and now that there is 100 years of competition, it was so interesting. That's a beautiful way of saying and having your competitors as a benchmark, because you need level playing field and your competitors provide that. So if an idea is already done, great, that's where you should be. I mean, that's my 2 cents about it.
Actually, like to add on to that as well. I think yes, it's a very scary place to be in if your idea does not have any competitors, right? It often means that the task or the responsibility of educating your customers on its value often falls on you, which takes you away from actually selling, right? Because you have a step ahead of what you need to do. So healthy competition is good, but again, it's not a straightforward answer. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and the answers tend to be, case to case basis. All right, I think I'll just take this question that is for me. So how to find the right partners for your startup? This is one of the universe's unanswered questions. Just like how hard it is to find a life partner, it is so hard to find a partner for your startup. I think more than that, more than just finding the right partner, it is on how you still keep that relationship alive. Right? How do you keep that right partner? So when you're going through the entrepreneurship journey along with a co-founder, it's not your journey, in fact, starts there, right? So try to answer questions like, are you doing enough to keep this sort of relationship on the basis of trust and honesty, right? Are you having conversations regularly? Are you talking about your company, your product? And do you guys have that sort of nice vibe? And if not, what could you do to make that happen, right? And it's completely fine even if it doesn't work out. There are a lot of people who do it by themselves as well. So I would say don't keep this stopping you from what you want to do.
So anybody else wants to add to Swati's?
I think, let me just, sorry, you changed it. Okay,
Then
let me just
continue.
add to what Swati was saying. Yes, I think there is no hard and fast rule on finding the right partner, but a couple of things which you should be keeping in mind is, because right now everyone is in a phase where they want to try out things. I think startup has given everyone a taste of how lives can be if you want to try out and step into the process, as it was earlier. Like earlier it was like maybe more like it's high risk, please don't go ahead and do it, you will get like so much of hesitation. I'm not saying you won't get it now, but at least you see some of these people coming forward. So among those folks, identifying the right person, I think it's more like you make a list of a kind of red flags, right? So most of the times, I think 90% of the time, people are nice. People would be having some sort of a skills to add on to, you would always not know everything. So you would always find the other person more interesting. You would find the person more insightful. And there are high chances that you would click off in the initial go, right? It makes sense to pull in like an engineer, a designer, a product guy. And, it makes sense. It completely makes sense as a team. But eventually I think you have to look for those red flags, and it has to be done as fast as possible. So some of these red flags are the way, some of them would not be showing interest the way you do it, or share the passion the way you do it. So though it is not like a skill based kind of a red flag that you're looking at, but it's more like a soft kickoff base, that you have to be on the same energy level, or else you'll just keep clashing with each other because your energies are not right. So I think that those are the things which you always keep in mind. And most of the times, it's not like you cannot find the right partner. It's everywhere. You just need to find that, how you are suiting with each other. In the end, you just have to be in harmony, because it's gonna be like a very kind of a tough journey. And I think I would be a bit against Swati saying that you should try it on your own. I really feel it is not something which you should to the maximum extent try it on your own, because it's really lonely, and you really need a constant support system. So I feel that you should never let it go. You should always keep trying to find the right partner. I'm not saying you just meet the next person and say, yeah, you become my co-founder, but you have to constantly be in a lookout of it. And I think it's good to have like a good set of initial team to start with, and a set of kind of a complementary skill set and complementary energy levels to combine while doing or going through this journey.
Right. I'm sure there's like a bigger checklist, and this is like so critical
Yeah.
for the startup to become success. So we'll go back to Karti. Since we have you back, this question is from Tanvi. She is asking, should we make decisions and choices considering the present conditions or the future one?
Well, there is no future, right? In all reality, past is gone, the future is non-existent. You are actually making it through your present. So which means that we can only make choices with what we have, where we are right now. So maybe the choices that you are making now will result in a better future, but we cannot make a choice based on the future, because it's still in the making. It's like asking ourselves, should I really taste this biryani with raita or another curry? The biryani is not made yet, right? So that would be my view. So there's no future.
Oh, okay. According to Kathy, I think she has an interesting take on this one. We will move on to the next question, because we have lots of questions. If there are any discussions, we can keep it to the end. This is for Nitya. Nitya, this question, I think we've lost you when you were talking about the generalist. Did we again lose Nitya?
I think Nitya, you're on mute.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, so I think if you can please go ahead and answer it about generalist versus specialist.
Yes. So I don't know where I got cut off, but what I was saying is that directly to answer the question, I would say that no, it's not a disadvantage to be considered as a generalist or a specialist. What is important is that you know the kind of work that you're doing, and you find the right match with your personality, your talents, your innate ability to do something, and try to see which of these you fit. Most of the teams, whether you see it as a startup team or team in products, in corporates, some of the best teams are the ones who have people of different wavelengths, maybe same wavelength but different skill sets, different abilities. So a specialist would really bring something, facts and knowledge about something that can help you make a decision. But you need a catalyst in the group as well. You need someone to understand the big picture. You need someone to connect the dots somewhere. Right. And so I would say it's very personal. If you are someone who are a go-getter, who has interest in one specific subject a lot and you want to pursue it, then you should consider being a specialist. My only suggestion would be that before deciding this, try a few things, like maybe do a couple of internships or jobs, depending on how early you are in your career, and try to see which of these roles fit you better. Because even in the future, when you're looking into a career, into something, people often look at you for who you are rather than the list of skills that you have.
And that's a valuable advice. I think they can get on to internships or jobs, whatever it is, and decide what is more suitable for them, their personality.
Can I add one
Yeah,
or two
please.
cents? Okay, this generalist specialist has been a huge topic for decades together. There are two ends to the spectrum. Some people say that the specialization is for insects. It's not for human beings. There is another topic which talks about you need to know a lot of things. So what I have noticed is that there is a T-shaped person, there is a Z-shaped person. There are so many concepts out there, but my little brain could not understand all of it. So what I realized is, see, you have only so much time. All said and done, 36,500 days is all you have in your life if you are blessed with 100 years of living. In that 7,000 days is what you are spending on your career, which means that you have so little time, and specializing anything takes a lot of time. So an intelligent way is to go with a specialization, but having some maximizers around it. For example, if I can have an addition effect to my specialization versus a multiplication effect to my specialization. So I look for multipliers and not just additives. So if you are in design and you are in entrepreneurship, so use design, that is your specialization. But entrepreneurship is what allows you to make a huge impact. It gives you more intellectual capacity to go and talk about things. So you're looking for maximizers. So try and have, in my opinion, at least like 2 or 3 maximizers around your specialization, and you are in a great place. Because, for example, when I look at design, this side there is technology, this side there is product management, that side there is data. So if I kind of look at maximization, I can choose probably product management and design because they both are defining the future. So let's go ahead into innovation, creativity. So choose your maximizers, which will give you multiplication effect. That has really helped in this choosing specialization versus generalization. I hope that helps.
Awesome. Going over to Aditi. Aditi, there are organizations where designers are put down compared to devs. This is something new for me also. How should one handle it is what Bhavani is saying. I always felt designers are valued more than developers.
Right. No. So I would say actually there are all. Yes, Karthik, please. You're saying something.
Is that true? Is what?
Oh yeah, that's definitely true. Actually, there are all the three kinds of organizations where designers are put down compared to devs, where devs are put down compared to designers, and then there are organizations that only value ideas, right? So, and the way to handle it is very simple, right? Prove your quality. That's the only way to help to make a case, right? When you're going into a meeting, make sure that you have a rationale for everything, and make sure that you also expect a rationale from everyone else, right? Don't just take feedback like, hey, I don't like that color. Please ask that, why do you not like that color? The conversations have to logically evolve and not just be based on personal biases. That's the only way to handle such a situation. And with time, once you start doing that, once people start understanding that, hey, whatever you're talking about, it has logic attached to it, people will start respecting you and will start respecting the output you're producing.
Awesome, very simple and sweet to understand. Going back to Karthi, this is from Meena. Everybody may not be good with visual ideas. What should one do in such cases?
So a lot of us, including me, I'm not a visual designer. I come from the cognitive science world. So I have had this syndrome saying that, oh my God, I'm not good with visuals. Unless until you want to be a Picasso, you can have that feeling. But as long as you can draw a circle, a square, a line, and a blob, you are set for visual ideas. So using the 6 principles that we discussed today and using these simple shapes, you will be able to tell any story that you want to. So what would empower you is how you're mixing, it's basically the remix of the principles along with these simple shapes. I think anybody can do it. If we are able to, if I can do it, I think you definitely can do it.
Right.
I mean, whoever asked the question, all of you can do it.
I think you're making it sound very simple. I think it needs a lot more practice, but still we can
It
do
is
it.
simple.
It is not as simple as
It,
what
it
Aarti
doesn't.
does with all her presentations, but if there's any trouble, contact her. She's available on LinkedIn. Moving to Nitya. Nitya, how did you overcome introversion? Interesting question.
Yes, very interesting. And to be very honest, I haven't overcome it yet. I still am an introvert. But I think what answers, like the insight that I have about this is that it was the time when I stopped making knowing being an introvert a thing for me. A lot of times I would put that as a defense mechanism. So when I was supposed to go meet people, attend conferences or whatever it was, even small things, I would always be like, what am I going to go and do there? I'll be introvert. I don't know who I can talk to. I don't know anyone there. And it started acting as a blocker for me. On the other hand, I came to understand that a lot of work that I do, not just work, even in personal life, you need to be able to understand, talk to people, and really build bonds with people. So the only thing that I did was actually try to know for sure that when I feel I'm telling myself you're introverted, you can't do this, challenge it, just go there, even if you don't know anybody. And it has always proven to be good for me. I mean, nerves are always there, but when you meet people, when you understand their story, when you meet someone else who's also doesn't know anyone, it always helps. And that's how I'm actually, I met all of you here. I made this bonds, etc. So definitely stop making it a blocker for yourself.
All right. Back to Shivrina. How do you take care of customer retention, especially in case of PregBuddy?
Okay. I think there's no, it's not like a one-stop solution. It's, I think, a learning curve. Customer retention is, one of the key challenges for any sort of company or any sort of a product that you're building, because your offering or your product that you're building would, be attractive for initial adopters. You would see some sort of a new kind of a market opening up for your product and new users coming across. But it becomes really difficult for any player to figure out that one aspect which actually retains your customer. So I think for us, what really helped was the fact that we tried to put like multiple touch points with our users. So if you see, PregBuddy initially was just catering to expecting women. So we knew that there is a journey which would come to an end where she would deliver the baby, and then there is a very difficult, maybe hardly any chance for us to engage and retain, our women users. So what we understood is that there are two set of problems. One is where you want them to become your supporters, promoters, and continue the funnel even if they don't need the product. So these are all maybe helpful for people who have infrequent use cases, right? So how do you keep them engaged during that phase? And the other is, how do you make sure they complete any sort of a process or a feature or a product or service that you have set out for them to do, right? So these are the two major parts. I'll come to the first part first. So when we just started as a content community platform. So we understood there are aha moments for our users where they feel that it made a small difference. Maybe it reduced the time in which they got the answers from our community, or reduced the clutter from the Google search they were getting. So we understood these nitty gritties on what are those aha moments for our users, where are they finding meaningful, and we removed everything else from our platform. We had a lot of things initially, like we wanted to do everything around women's health and everything around anything and everything that would help expecting women through our journey. But we understood those aha moments and we removed the clutter so that they could seamlessly go through this journey. And once you go through this journey, you would see they become like a more they kind of build trust with that platform because you were able to give them something. And this is how we did, from the content, the community, to connecting with the doctors. We understood where all they were finding gaps, where all we were fitting correctly, and we removed everything else. And that's where we found like a perfect channel which would continue the journey during the process of the service we are providing. Now coming to the additional part where they have availed the service. Now you have to wait for them to come back and kind of avail it again. For us, it was like they have to become pregnant again to come back to the circle, right? So for us, I think the one thing that helped in such a scenario was a sense of giving back, and the way we highlighted that sense of giving back, right? So in a peer-to-peer community, we had like mothers who were we did it like a stage by stage. So we had like mothers who were maybe just 2 months ahead in the journey, who would help the mothers who are maybe in the early stages of their pregnancy, right? So we understood, once you highlight this kind of sense of giving back, you were able to see that the women who have actually availed this service would again come back and do it. So we had like our users who have delivered already coming back to the platform and helping others out, because they know it. They can help you connect with the right doctor, tell you who is good, who is bad, who is for which service, or just help you with some of the home remedies that they have helped, right? So in a way, where you can identify the sense of giving back, the users would contribute a bit more. So some of these things are very simple, like you don't have to generate all the content, you can rely on your users to do that, right? So that's one way. And the obvious other way is to expand your product. So once you know that there is a drop off, this is like a straightforward product answer. Once you know there is any sort of a drop off, you figure out a solution for that. So we expanded pre and post our pregnancy phases, because we knew there are drop offs and an opportunity to increase our customer life cycle journey.
Right.
I think that's it. Yeah.
That's perfect. So coming back, this is question for me. When we start out with a new product that is not found in the market, how do we make strategies for its success and get users? I think, according to me, as we are running out of time, we will be quickly answering all the rest of the questions as well. So how do you make strategies is like, first understand who that user is, and try identifying that user. Who is that user? This is the most important part of your journey. So when you are identifying the idea, you are identifying out of a problem, right? So identify what is the problem, who has that problem, and then you go after that users. That's about it. I think rest of the strategies, your roadmaps, everything will be defined on how massively the users are adapting your product. So even if it is an innovation, I think it's the same. So we'll have to see, and I think we'll have to test it out. That is one take. There's a lot more to it, which we can add if we are able to have more time once we are done with the questions. Hope that answered you, Chetali. This question is from Sami to Swati Kakarla. How do you choose a metric while moving forward in entrepreneurship, while validating your idea, and while testing out your MVP?
Okay, that's a great question. I think one of the easiest ways to do this is from day one or day zero, make sure that you're building a base where you're gathering that information that would allow you to choose metrics, right? So think like an accountant in the beginning. And another, because of the interest of time, another thing that I would advise is to keep yourselves away from vanity metrics, right? Do not count the number of social media likes you're getting or the number of followers. It's not going to amount to as much as what it would if you calculated how much it actually costs to acquire a customer and how long are they staying with you and how much should they actually add to your business and your product, right? So just make a base first to allow you to make that decision, and then make the right decisions for the metrics after that.
Right. Cool. Moving on to Karthi. Karthi, won't images be open to audience's interpretation? Won't that make it more susceptible to discrepancies, is what Rachna is asking.
So we have only two modalities for processing. Our brain can take only two things, right? One is verbals, the other is visuals. Between verbals and visuals are much more easier. But now when we mix it with verbals, it becomes even more easier. So instead of talking just verbals, instead of talking just visuals, if we can mix the both in the right proportion, so that we have this concept of cognitive overload. The idea is not to overload the brain. If you keep the brain like as if the communication went straight into the brain without zero frictions on the way, that is when you have landed your idea. and all communication aims at that only. So don't leave the audience to interpret it in just with images. Try and talk about it so that it makes sense. So if I just tweet and just a visual, probably I'm not saying it. If I just add one line to it, for example, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, and I add a visual, it makes an even more impact. So I would say that go for ways where there cannot be any discrepancies. I mean, between our verbal vocabulary and visual vocabulary, we understand verbal vocabulary only 7%. Visual is like 93%. Let's use it all.
Right. Cool. Nitya, how should design thinking be applied in ideation stage? How to measure whether we are going in the right direction? This is from Tejas.
Okay. So Tejas, I think ideation is a part of the design thinking process. Design thinking itself can be process, mindset, set of tools, whatever whoever wants to take it as. But I think how design thinking and ideation work hand in hand is because when you look at ideation, it is a stage where you're expected to think of things creatively, think of different ways to do something, think of a way to solve a problem. So in order to actually come to that ideation stage, you either need to have experienced a problem and then validated it, or you need some kind of stimuli to actually take you there. And that's how the design thinking process, when you start in the beginning, when you start with discovering, right, you're filled with a lot of different kind of inputs. So some of them could be triggers, some of them could be inspiration, some of it could be even a conversation that you had with someone talking about something. And these are all triggers that are somewhere in your mind. And design thinking, basically the framework lets you somehow put it together when it's needed in the ideation stage. So at that moment when there's either you do it as a sprint, or even if you're just thinking them out aloud in dialogue, there is a time when you need to come up with it. This process actually helps you connect those triggers and come to good ideas. The second part of the question, in my mind, is more important. So ideas are really easy to come by. Sometimes people, of course, feel it's difficult, and that is because maybe you're not at the right place where you have those triggers already. But going forward with an idea, how you're going to measure whether this is the one that's best, for me lies in iteration. So before you really choose a direction, the iterative one, when you're trying to do what we spoke about earlier and what the other ladies spoke today as well, as about the minimum viable product or minimum viable experience. You have to test out whether someone agrees with your idea, whether there are users. And you have to do it in the most minimal way. Talk to people, like you mentioned, it can be quite inexpensive, like learning from WhatsApp groups, etc. So before picking a direction, make sure you have a couple of ideas, make sure you have probably one that you think is the one, and then try to see what would disprove that idea. And if you're able to prove that, that would be the metric for you to actually know whether you can proceed in that direction.
Thanks, Nitya. That's a very helpful answer. Back to Shivrana. This is the last question. What are the pros and cons of scaling a product using fundraising and scaling a product with profitability of the product? This is from Abhilash.
Okay. I think, Abhilash, having a sustainable profitability is a bliss. I don't think there is any other way you should run it, but reaching that stage is not easy. So definitely, I mean, when you're looking at fundraising versus building a profitable product, you should always be looking at building a profitable product. So what happens is when you are, when you have like a multiple source of getting your money for your resources, that always helps. When you are solely dependent on fundraising, what happens is you're really dependent, and in a very blunt term, you're dependent on someone else's money to come in for you to run the show, right? Versus when you're looking at profitability, it's pretty much simple that it's up to you to figure out the consistency of that profitability. So you would do more iterations. It's more in your control when you look at profitability of a product, right? So reaching that stage should be a kind of a parallel goal for any product building or any scaling process that you're looking at. It's not easy as it sounds. It's very difficult to achieve a profitable stage, especially when you want to mix your scaling, you want to mix your user expansion into picture. Profitability just goes out of the entire the kind of analysis that you're doing, right? So I think there are pros and cons to both of it, but I would always be towards building more profitable product than solely focus or running your entire fuel on fundraising. That's like my take.
If I could just add on to that.
Go on, Swati.
All right, thank you. So I think this makes a lot of sense, just like how Sharina was just talking about. We've made a very conscious decision to stay bootstrapped and not just take external funding. And I think it ties in a lot to how you are as an entrepreneur, right? When you accept external funds, right, you have got two problems to solve. One is to sustain your company, and the other is to how do you use that money in order to get what you want out of your business, right? And that's a separate skill. If you're a seasoned entrepreneur who knows what you need to prod to get what you need, that would be the best route to take. But if this is the first time for you, I would say bet on yourself, because change only happens at the precipice. And the more times you are on that edge, the better it is for your company. It's the school of hard thought.
Right. So I would love to add that, understand more deeper in pros and cons. I think there are lots of pros and cons in both the things. And it would be a blessing to get a fundraise, right? That would happen only if you have already executed something like that before. We can't really raise funds without showing anything. So I'm sure we have a lot more expertise in it. And I would like to thank each and every speaker for today, coming in and sharing your knowledge and learnings with all the community. And I know most of you, I think most of us are organizers, most of us are part of Google Developer Experts and Google Developer Launchpad. They're like, this is one such amazing community who believes in giving back to the community. And I'm sure all of us are ready to help you out. If you have anything, directly reach out to the speakers. Thank you so much once again to all the audience and the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us from all around the world. I would like to take this opportunity and thank all of our speakers for delivering such an amazing and insightful session. We look forward to seeing you all tomorrow at 2 p.m. IST for our final day of IWD India 2020, where we will be having some amazing sessions on Android and web by some awesome speakers. See you all there. Have a great evening. And here's me, Savi, and my co-host Swati signing off. Bye-bye.